My dear Arthur, as often to my sorrow I have had to observe, you let yourself be carried away into a tone in which the seriousness of the matter you speak of stands in the worst contradiction to the mocking and contemptuous matter of your expression. This I cannot meet with friendly or playful rejoinders. Oh no. I must oppose you with justice and firmness, and I must unconditionally require of you that you write to me with reverence, kindness, and filial affection, if you write me at all. You know that I have always meant well by you, and if you cannot believe on my word, then judge by your father and by all unprejudiced friends. All that concerns me touches them also, for your father is as much my friend in the fullest sense as I am his. Of course, he's gone.
Hmm.
Um, uh, if I were needful for my happiness, I would gladly make general confession before any tribunal and before my child. I would not shrink before any judgment of the world, but only, of course, where I myself am to blame. I claim the right to be happy. And if it is true that happiness consists in the fulfillment of duty and in enjoying with a cheerful mind those harmless pleasures which still remain to us, then I can say that I strive for it with all my strength, and that I neither deserve reproaches on that account, nor will I let myself be deprived of it. The extraordinary opinions you utter, such as that every human being does what who perceives himself to be mistaken is therefore dishonorable, that every man of spirit is condemned to solitude, that all relationship is a burden, these opinions are, in my eyes, false and harmful. You require of life what it cannot give. You desire to be everywhere that which one never is, namely, entirely satisfied. You turn away from people because they cannot be fashioned to your notion. You do not consider that you yourself are not fashioned in theirs. As concerns your vocation, I cannot decide for you. No human being can do that. Yet I tell you my opinion plainly. If you truly feel the irresistible impulse towards science and the courage for perseverance, then it is not too late. Quit the counting house. Prepare yourself with all the most strenuous diligence for academic study. Accustom yourself early to a quiet, solitary life. Forgo amusements, and even if you remain unnamed, strive silently for that higher knowledge which alone can give you peace. But if that impulse is not unconquerable, if you still need outward glitter and a share of life's small pleasures, then choose for yourself a bread study. Be a physician or a jurist. You must have a profession, not only because you will not be rich enough to live on your income alone, but also so that you may have a definite aim toward which you can strive. Only such a firm determination makes one happy. Decide and inform me of it, but you must decide alone. I will not advise you falsely. It is a grave and earnest step. Read Furnow's letter attentively and do not deceive yourself so that you do not confound the discontent of your present, admittedly not pleasant, situation with the higher impulse toward knowledge. If you are resolved, then we will manage a separation from Danzig and Hamburg well enough. I will, as far as I can, help you with hand and heart. Do not take it ill that I've spoken to you plainly. It is the speech of a mother who wishes to be your friend, but who will not allow herself to be spoken to without respect. Okay, very good. That's her letter.
Hmm.
That is a smart woman.
That is a smart woman. It's a good letter. It's
A
like, I
very good
am
letter.
not taking your nonsense and all your woes with the world.
My
Here
the
are the
the
choices you need to
implication,
make.
yeah, yeah. The implication I think is that he was being a little bit profligate, or he would.
Hmm.
I think at the school he would like kind of act out, and he has money, right? At some
Yeah.
point here, he gets this money. Um, but he ends up getting kicked out of this school that he goes to attend at Gotha. And I'm going to read the poem here. Um, it's like half kicked out, maybe not.
Hmm.
But he would eventually matriculate into university at Berlin. We'll get him there. Okay. Um, Schopenhauer's behavior in Gotha, however, qualified him as a subject of its citizens' prying curiosity, and by the criteria suggested by his poem, a fellow Philistine. He would make fun of them in a poem. Um, I'm going to read the poem. This is him mocking the citizens of Gotha. They spy, listen, and pay attention to everything that happens, what moves each, what each does, what each says aloud or softly. Nothing escapes them. Through windows they keep watch, their ears pressed against doors. No event is unobserved. No cat can walk upon the roof without them knowing about it. Of a person's mind, thought, and worth, they do not prick up their ears. How much he consumes each year, and whether he rightly belongs to the town's dignitaries, whether he must be greeted first, whether lord or gracious, whether counselor or clerk, Lutheran or Roman Catholic, married or single, how large his house, how fine his clothes, is profoundly considered. Yet, can he be of use to us? This question they, of course, prefer to considerations great and small, or else they ask, what thinks he of us? What are his thoughts and words? They ask of every Smith and Jones and carefully weigh their every word, and they screw up their eyes. There's something to that. That doesn't change very much, does it? That guy's having more fun than we are. That guy seems to be having more fun than us. We got to keep an eye on that guy. That guy acts like he knows something we don't know. All right. So he spent money freely, running through 150 taler in a 5 week period, the monthly salary of a senior civil servant. And keep in mind that number, 150 taler. So let's say a senior civil
Taller.
servant in today's money, 90K, 120K, I don't know,
Hmm.
something like that with benefits. So 150 taler. He runs through that in 5 weeks, about the monthly salary of a senior civil servant. And during a day trip to Liebenstein, he spent 10 taler, the equivalent of the monthly income of a tradesman.
Right?
He was also infatuated with the nobility, and he bragged to his mother about his associations with barons and countesses. Quite naturally, Arthur's prodigality and associations with nobility caused Johanna great concern. She always stressed the frugality of her own lifestyle and her economical use of her resources. Almost ad infinitum, she told Arthur that the costs of her twice weekly tea parties were small. She only served tea and buttered bread. And when she sought summer lodgings in Jena, she emphasized how little it cost. Now, his mother was accusing him, and rightly so, of doing what he accused his mother of doing, living a lavish lifestyle. She was also bothered about her son's infatuation with the nobles. You belong to the bourgeois world. Remain in it. And recall that you assured me that you wanted to renounce all splendor if you could only live for knowledge, and that this would bring you more honor than to chase after frippery and appearance. Naturally, she also told him not to drink too much. A glass of beer at dinner and a glass of wine or two later in his room would be appropriate. She did not want to preach, she told him, but young people do not know how to celebrate properly. And in her youth, she had seen men for whom it was habitual to drink too much. She probably had her own father in mind. All right.
Hmm.
His good times in Gotha were relatively short lived, however, as he dramatically put, but, oh misfortune, I still had not learnt to cease my dangerous jokes, which ruined me.
Not the jokes.
Jokes! He's trying to be funny! I'm funny! It's just George Costanza running around. I'm funny! I really am, Jerry! Jerry, I'm funny! I made a joke! That's hilarious. That's a Seinfeld episode right there. His
Uh,
dangerous joke was a satirical poem he wrote about one of the instructors, Christian Ferdinand Schulze, a fellow he said he could not even recall seeing. Here's the poem. Pulpit luminary, delight of the chair, town announcer and mouthpiece of the lodge, perfect Christian, thorough Jew, Gentile, who hears tomes in the morning and talents at night, master of the seven liberal arts, a man who knows and can do all, the bloom and acme of all fine minds, with thousands of friends has, and names. Wow,
Burn.
spicy, burn. I don't know if I can hold this book anymore. It's too hot. It's spicy. Different times. The faculty soon
Yeah.
became aware of the poem. I think you have to read the whole thing with like rolling eyes the entire time, right?
Right.
So the faculty
Jokes.
learned of the poem, and Headmaster During felt compelled to punish Arthur. He therefore
Hmm.
ceased providing private Latin lessons to him.
Uh-oh.
Arthur's curled up in his pillow. No more. I'm not gonna know how
No
to
more Latin.
conjugate. I'm not gonna know how to conjugate past tense in for my verbs. I don't know my verbs. That's hilarious. Oh, you're ripping Ovid from his hands. He therefore, yeah, that's hilarious. Even though he told Arthur that he enjoyed doing so, he could remain in the gymnasium, but he would have to find another instructor to continue his private lessons. So Schopenhauer claimed that he did not want to do this, so he decided to leave Gotha. So he leaves Gotha right before Christmas in 1807, and his mother did not see his arrival as an early Christmas present or as the harbinger of a happy new year. So Johanna, I'm going to stand up in a minute, Abby. Johanna held that his prank led to his expulsion. In the same letter as she pronounced this as the reason for the end of his career in Gotha, she decided that she would analyze his character in unreserved terms, and in terms that revealed why she had welcomed distance between her and dear Arthur. And this is the letter that we're going to read the whole of on the After Dark. But let me read a little
Uh-huh.
bit again. You are not an evil human. You are not without intellect and education. You have everything that could make you a credit to human society, etc. We've already read this. All of your good qualities become obscured by your super cleverness and are made useless to the world merely because of your rage at wanting to know everything better than others, of wanting to improve and master what you cannot command. There's more. I want to read the whole letter on After Dark just because it's so much
Right.
fun, but you get the idea. Okay.
Yeah.
She is not thrilled. And again, this paragraph ends with, if you were less like you would only be ridiculous, but thus as you are highly annoying. Abby, you found your favorite character here. Abby's relating to Johanna. Um, So yeah, she's just trying to get him to grow up. I mean, he's at an age. You gotta
Yeah.
understand too. This would carry through. Like eventually, when he would publish Will and Representation, like he was very particular with the publisher to the point where the publisher must have realized he was dealing with a character. Schopenhauer is a great character. We've had
Right.
some characters on the pod, like Anna Kavan's a character, Burroughs is a character, but Schopenhauer right up there. Eventually, I'll do Goethe. I want to do Nietzsche, but and there's going to be a chance next year to sponsor episodes too, people. By the way, you'll be able to donate. You can even request an episode for a certain. We're going to start taking paid requests for core episodes. Our friends at Rare Candy started doing that kind of thing. It got me thinking, maybe that's not a bad idea because
Mm.
people love asking us to do an episode. And now I'm going, okay, well, pay us and we will do that episode, and we will credit you as the sponsor. Why not? All right, Abby, can you, uh, I don't know, give me 60, 90 seconds and reflect on Johanna and the relationship. What do you think is going to happen now? Because he has to, he's quit his apprenticeship.
Hmm.
Dad's dead. He's decided he's going to go into academia, and he effectively gets kicked out over the winter, like over the Christmas break ish. Kicks out slash leaves. He says, I left. All right, without those private, they're gonna bust my
Right.
balls over a little poem. Johanna's like, no, you got kicked out, and he moves back in. What do you think's gonna happen?
Well, to answer the question that we had at the top of the episode about about whether it's the mother's fault or his fault that this kind of like letter had come into being, I'm arriving I'm arriving somewhere in the middle, and the reason for that is that I do think that his parents were a little strict and unloving towards him. Um, so I think they are partially to blame. But I also think that he has I think he does sound like he is annoying. And he has that kind of like poor me rich kid attitude about him that is a deeply annoying quality when you see it in history and in television and film and that and books and that sort of thing. So I'm arriving at 50-50 for that because their parenting resulted in this annoying kid. So that's where I am on that. I don't think he was necessarily an evil kid or she was necessarily like the classic narcissistic mother. So that's
No,
that's where
right?
I've fallen on
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I agree. I mean, and I don't think that uh, anything I say from here will change your opinion of that.
Right.
I think there, and then let's also remember too, his father probably killed
Yeah.
himself in the canal behind
Yeah.
their
So he's
home
like
when he
acting
was.
up and yeah,
Yeah,
it's some tough stuff to go through. Yeah.
absolutely, it is.
To
So.
answer the question
Mhm.
of where I think we're going to go next, I think he's going to continue to blow through a lot of money.
Mm, mm. Surprisingly, he was actually the one who was the most responsible. He would live on
Oh,
he would live on the interest. Yeah, because he found his passion in philosophy, and he was able to
Right.
live on the
So
interest.
he
There,
he he found a purpose and didn't have to
he well,
continue to act out.
and if we went back to the letter that I read, there are moments in there where she is giving him good advice. It's just she's
Mm,
not, because she is saying find what you want to do, and he did. He ultimately did. It wasn't a bread profession or whatever they call
right.
it, bread work. But he didn't really need it, because he did, you know, he would live. He never he tried to marry, but he never married. No
Hmm.
children. So he became that solitary academic philosopher type. No legitimate children and apparently the bastards died. In any event, yeah. So he's with her in Dresden, um, or in Weimar, excuse me, and he ended up not living with his mother. He's meeting Goethe. She's concerned he's going to be brutish and difficult at her salons.
Hmm.
She doesn't really want him there. He doesn't have a
Don't
lot to
come to.
contribute. Yeah, don't come to
My
the.
son's cramping my style at the salons.
Yeah, really. Yeah. God. You don't like buttered bread, Arthur. You don't. Um, so he ends up going to uh, Göttingen in 1809, which is a school, university. And believe it or not, he starts studying medicine.
Oh.
Yeah, but he is quickly pushed toward Plato and Kant by a fellow named Schulze. And we'll read a little bit about his time here because this is very important. Um, so, Schopenhauer matriculated as a student of medicine at the University of Göttingen on the 9th of October, 1809. He left behind no record of his reason for going to Göttingen. At first blush, the nearby University of Jena, which I believe is where he would get his PhD from, his doctorate,
Mhm.
would have appeared to be a natural choice. Goethe oversaw the university and took a lively role in its development. Goethe oversaw Jena. By the turn of the 19th century, it was the axis around which German intellectual life resolved, and it was peopled with the cadre. Oh, no, it might have been Göttingen. It was the axis around which German intellectual life resolved, and it was peopled with a cadre of influential writers, poets, and philosophers such had never been witnessed in Germany. Goethe induced Schiller to teach there in 1787, and he taught there until he moved to Weimar in 1793. It became the foremost center for Kant's philosophy, eclipsing even Kant's home institution at Königsberg. Christian Gottfried Schutz began lecturing on Kant's philosophy as early as 1784. Kant's Critique of Pure Reason appeared in 1781, and Schutz founded the most important vehicle for the dissemination and discussion of Kantian philosophy, the journal Allgemeine Literaturzeitung. The great popularizer and proponent of Kant's philosophy, Karl Leonhard Reinhold, arrived in 1787, and when he departed in 1798, and Hegel when he departed, Goethe brought in Fichte as his replacement. Schelling arrived in 1798 and Hegel in 1801. Jena also became the home ground for many of the most significant figures in early German Romanticism. So he doesn't go to Jena to begin, but which is surprising, but he's going to go study medicine in Göttingen.
Mhm.
Um, and by the time Schopenhauer arrives at Jena, the glory days are kind of over by the time he's qualified. Do you know anything about Kant?
Not not solidly, no.
Have you ever heard of the categorical imperative?
No.
The categorical imperative is the moral foundation of Kant's philosophy, or it's at the foundation of his moral philosophy. It's the idea that do not do unto others what you would not want done to yourself. Do not
Right.
do an action that would lead to something that is undesirable for you in that is then most probably undesirable for others. I just want
Hmm.
to describe it properly, and I want to explain who Kant was briefly, um, because Schopenhauer is Plato, Kant, Schopenhauer. Boom, boom, boom. Um, with there's no and with some stopping points, but it's boom, boom, boom. That's it. Idealism, the idea that there are pure forms. There's the pure microphone that we can't know because the subject is creating the impression of the object. Our minds are creating the microphone. this microphone in my mind is very different from what you're seeing and what y'all are seeing. And you're creating it by seeing it. That's a critical idea.
Hmm.
Okay, all right. And so the categorical imperative or a categorical imperative is an unconditional moral command central to Kant's ethics that all rational beings must follow regardless of their personal desires or the consequences of their actions. So a moral imperative is like, yeah, don't just because you want that guy's iPhone, you can't go and stab him and take his iPhone. It
Right.
seems basic, but it's philosophically very intense, right? So the key aspects of a categorical imperative, unconditional duty. All right, a categorical imperative is a command that must be followed simply because it's a moral duty. It's universal. Okay, uh, the core of the first formulation of the categorical imperative is the idea that you should act only according to the maxim whereby you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law based on reason, focus on, etc. So the idea is like, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not murder, let's say.
Hmm.
That's a pretty good one. We can kind of all go, that is reasonable.
Yeah.
Do I want to live in a world where murder is not categorically understanding murder to be murder in the legal sense? No, I don't want to live in that world. Okay, so and the criticism of this is that yeah, it's just reverse engineering Christian morality, which there's some of that. But yeah, Immanuel Kant was a philosopher. He was German. He was born in Königsberg, 1724. He's one of the central thinkers of the Enlightenment. He worked on epistemology, metaphysics, ethics, and aesthetics, and he's one of the most influential and highly discussed figures in modern Western philosophy. This is very important. In his doctrine of and I'm just reading Wikipedia, in his
Hmm.
doctrine of transcendental idealism, Kant argues that space and time are mere forms of intuition, Anschauung, that structure all experience and that the objects of experience are mere appearances. It's the matrix. It's the cave. You're not seeing the computer. You're seeing, what are you seeing? You're seeing your eyes absorbing light from the computer, and your eyes paint the picture of what the computer is. You touch it. Your finger is sensing what? A little bit of plastic. But are you touching the computer? Well, no, you're touching a piece of plastic. You know what I mean? And it's your finger is creating the sensation as much as the object itself. Okay. Okay. The nature of things as they are in themselves is unknowable to ourself. And then he would write the Critique of Pure Reason. Um, Kant drew a parallel to the Copernican revolution, the idea we revolve around the sun, and his proposal to think of the objects of experience as conforming to people's spatial and temporal forms of intuition and the categories of their understanding. Um, so there you go. All right, and then he believed that reason was the source of morality, our reasoning minds. If this, then that. Well,
Hmm.
if I think that I can murder, and I do, and I get away with it, let's follow that to its logical conclusion. That is unreasonable. That will lead to immoral behavior at a scale that's unacceptable, is the idea generally. Okay?
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So he was born in 1724, but Schopenhauer is explicitly following on the work of Kant. Okay. All right. Um, so he's in Göttingen. He starts getting, there's a fellow named Fichte, and then he ends up going to Berlin. And students flock to Fichte's lectures, welcoming his insistence that they accept the moral responsibility attached to their status as free beings. Okay, so, um, and we could dwell for an entire semester on the nuances of the philosophical systems and who agreed with whom, and Fichte and Kant and Hegel and all this. This is a biographical profiling podcast. We're not going to get into the that far into the weeds, but this stuff is fascinating, and lest you think that it's irrelevant and doesn't still kind of echo down to today. Just Schopenhauer's again, his ideas influenced Nietzsche, Wagner, Freud. Those are all in play still, to one degree or another, or at the very least, people still wrestle with them. Um, Now, which makes them means they're in play. Okay, all right. So just a little detour there about Schopenhauer or about Kant.
Can't.
Yeah, Kant. Yeah, Kant. Um, yeah, Kant.
What was that?
I don't know. That's 2.5 hours into the podcast. Let me drink a little water here. Schopenhauer. It's a fun name to spell. It's easier to spell than Nietzsche.
Yeah, Nietzsche is a little difficult.
Nietzsche, no, it's so annoying. I can never remember where the Z and the S go. It's so annoying. All right.
Tease.
Yep. Yep. Okay. So let's see. What am I doing? Oh, yes. Um, so he leaves Göttingen for Berlin to study philosophy. Even if Schopenhauer had had a vibrant social life in Göttingen, its dearth of philosophy courses would have been sufficient for his departure. But he did have not have a robust social life. um, he reported that he continued to maintain an intense focus on his studies, a habit he had developed in Weimar, and that other students could not lure him away from his books because he was more mature by at least 5 years, had richer experiences, and had a fundamentally different nature than other students. I'm a special boy. Consequently, he really is. He's a very, very special boy. Consequently, he said that he spent most of his time in seclusion and solitude, reading many books, studying Plato and Kant on his own, and regularly attending lectures. Well, if you're going to be a world changing philosopher, you do
Mm-hmm.
kind of have to be a special boy. In his room, or woman, or girl, in his
Or
room there
girl.
was a bust of Socrates, a portrait of Goethe, and his poodle. And I got to remember what Atma means. It's like a Hindu term. Uh,
Atma.
Atma. Let me look it up. But he would have a poodle named Atma over and over and over again. His days assumed the cadence and general form that he would follow the rest of his life. The morning was for the heavy lifting of intellectual work, after which he played his flute. In the afternoon, he took long walks with his dog, and at night, he went to the theater or parties. Okay. All right. Yeah, it's often spelled Atman. It means the self or the soul. It's
Oh.
the innermost essence of a being. In the Upanishads, it's the deep inner self, ultimately identified with Brahman, the universal ground. Okay, in formulas like Tat Tvam Asi, that thou art. I am that I am. Right. Uh, and Schopenhauer adored the Upanishads. He named his poodle Atma as an homage to that idea of the inner essence. Um,
So we're saying that his spirit animal was a poodle.
his spirit animal was a poodle, and he played the flute, and he had a hard time courting women. So there are biographers will sometimes talk about a succession of them, but there are only two that are named explicitly. Um,
The
so he
poodles,
had
you mean?
one, yeah, the poodles,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So in any event, on his daily walks, his regular companion was a poodle, and when a band would pass, when a marching band or regimental band would pass, he would put the seat by the window in a convenient position for his little friend to gaze out.
Oh,
So much
that's
so
nice.
that neighborhood children nicknamed the dog Young Schopenhauer. Um, so this is interesting, though. They were more than pets to him. He's one of the 19th century's strongest voices for compassion toward animals. In P&P, Parerga and Paralipomena, ugh, in a section of the aphorisms that's been torturing me all week.
Hmm.
Paralip Paralipomena. Oh my God. In a section of the aphorisms on the wisdom of life, he even recommends a dog to brighten solitude. To anyone who needs lively entertainment for the purpose of banishing the dreariness of solitude, I recommend a dog in preference to any human companion. Um,
Oh, wow.
and on the basis, that's maybe a little farther than I would go. And on the basis of morality, he complains about English using the pronoun it for animals, as if they were inanimate things, as part of a broader argument that compassion for animals is integral to goodness of character. Save the
Right.
cat. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
except that it's like man, dog, woman
Right. Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
hierarchy of things that demand
Well, no dog
respect.
has ever written him a cruel letter, Abby.
True. No,
No
they didn't
dog has
call
ever
him
called him
evil.
a ballroom incel.
Yeah, but that was you.
You called. Did I call him a ballroom incel? I think it
Okay,
was
actually,
you.
it might have been
Yeah.
me. It might have been me.
Well, that's your
You.
prerogative, Abby. That's hilarious. I was going to call this episode. I have a very particular title for this episode, but I ballroom incel might have to take over because it's just too good. The episode title right now is I've got a draft going is Arthur Schopenhauer, Will Women Porcupines and Poodles. Um,
Oh,
yeah, it's
wait,
not
where do
bad.
the porcupines come in?
You're going to learn about the hedgehog's dilemma.
Okay.
Very important,
Oh,
the nature of human intimacy. One of my favorite ideas. Okay, so in any event, so he does self-study in Berlin, absorbs Kant and Plato. His aim is to complete Kant. He's going to complete the system of, Kant's transcendental idealism by
right.
identifying the thing in itself, the Ding an sich, whatever, the thing, Ding an sich.
The Ding on
He's
Zich.
the thing in itself, okay? He's going to identify it with will, okay? So the thing in itself is the status of objects as they are, independent of representation and observation that Immanuel Kant introduced as a concept, okay?
Hmm.
Uh, so in his doctrine of transcendental idealism, Kant argued the sum of all objects, the empirical world, is a complex, a matrix, if you will, of appearances whose existence and connection occur only in our representations, only in our minds, only in our idea. Kant introduces the thing in itself as follows: as we indeed rightly considering objects of sense as mere appearances, confess thereby that they are based upon a thing in itself, though we know not this thing as it is in itself, but only know its appearances, vis-a-vis the way in which our senses are affected by this unknown something. Seems like a really simple idea, but a really, really big idea. The
Hmm.
subject is the creator of the object, and the object is unknowable. And then now expand that idea into your relationships.
I find that idea easier to expand into relationships than I find it in relation to inanimate objects.
That's very interesting. I find it I I think the one is more shocking. I think the inanimate object thing makes perfect sense to me. But the idea
Oh,
that this would that we to one another are unknowable is very alarming to me. Yeah.
no, it
Yeah.
it it makes sense to me completely the other way around
Okay.
because
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of what we think we know about each other is the perception that we have of that person or us filtering them through our own lens of experiences and knowing. And they could be experiencing a completely different
Yeah. Yeah. Subjectivity.
subjectivity. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. When you say it like that, maybe it isn't as alarming as I make it out to be.
But it would alarm me if we were to both look at a computer screen and see or sense something completely different.
But that's what you don't know if purple looks like purple to you.
Yeah.
Like my
I,
purple may be I mean, and people are colorblind.
well, and to some people it is because there are
Sure.
different, yeah, the color
Yeah.
blindness, but also
Sure.
there was some sort of study that like women can perceive more colors than men can, and that
Sure.
like dogs and cats
Right.
perceive
Right.
colors differently to the
Sure.
rest of us.
Sure, absolutely, 100%. And then this gets even more alarming or more curious when you think about, and this isn't like an IQ, we're not going to get into phrenology, but there are people who have intelligence of different levels. The person with 150 IQ, they see the world completely differently from someone
Yeah,
with 130. There are people who can't do hypotheticals. How would you feel if you
right.
had not had breakfast this morning? But I had breakfast this morning.
But there
There
are
people.
also people who don't hear an inner monologue in their head.
Right. And people who can't rotate it, can't see an apple and rotate the apple around. Yeah.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah. My monologue just keeps telling me to kill the babysitter, so I turned it off a long time ago. Just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. We actually just hired a new babysitter. It's gonna be great. We're gonna be great. This is Art of Darkness. This is a joke. It's a joke. Okay.
But what's
Um,
also interesting is people with synesthesia, where they can like
mhm.
taste words or like
Sure.
hair color.
Yeah. Yeah, or just drop some acid and get you can experience that for a minute yourself, right? Like it's
Mhm.
altered states. It's very, very interesting to think about. Yeah, okay, cool. So yeah, subjectivity. And again, the idea that the subject creates the object in and of itself is unknowable. You will
Mhm.
never know the table. You know your sensation of in your impression of the table. That's it. Okay. Very intense idea when you really ponder it. Okay. What is the will for Schopenhauer? Because he's going to replace this idea of the thing in itself with this notion of the will. For Schopenhauer, the will is the blind, restless energy at the core of everything. Our minds show it to us as a world of objects, but our bodies and desires are its most intimate proof. Hence, suffering, compassion, the refuge of art, and the hard path of saying no to the will. So he would adopt this sort of Buddhist, Eastern, and even point to Christian ascetics and mystics who would self denial. This is the highlight of human life. If we can achieve, if we can settle the will, then we have some command over what we are because we are pure will. And it's an intense idea. Okay.
Mhm.
So he explicitly identifies the thing in itself with will. He keeps Kant's appearance thing in itself split, but argues Kant was wrong to say the noumenon is unknowable. The thing it's in itself is unknowable. We have immediate access to it in our own inner experience of willing. From there, he generalizes what appears to us outwardly as the world of objects in space, time, and causality is in itself will. Okay, so here are some key points he makes in The World as Will and Representation, which was not his dissertation. It's the book he wrote after, but
Right.
we're talking about his relationship to Kant here. We're getting into the philosophical influences. We know our body in two ways: as representation, an object among objects, and as will, immediate inner striving. I know that you're listening to me right now, okay, but I
Mhm.
also know that inside I'm making this podcast because, of my own mommy and daddy issues, like every podcaster, and that I'm trying to overcompensate for. And I don't know. In any case, you see what I'm saying. I'm making a joke, right?
Yeah.
But you get the idea, right? So we know as humans that we are seen and seen as objects of other people's experience, but we also have this inner self.
Mhm.
Again, that inner non-representational datum, willing, is our one direct window into what things are in themselves. Hence, the multiplicity we see, governed by the principium individuationis, space-time causality, is just the will's objectification. In itself, it is one and the same as will. Okay, so for Schopenhauer, will equals the Kantian noumenon, the inner essence of everything. Got the soul of a poet. It's a very
Mhm.
poetical idea. All right. And he was saying, no, 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 damn you, Kant. I know what this table is because I experience it through my will. I experience it through the whole of my taking it in. I experience the thing. Okay. Very interesting.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Um,
No wonder we're exhausted.
yeah. It sounds, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's my favorite line from Lebowski. He's a nihilist. That must be exhausting. Love that line. So he adopts Kant's subject object split and appearance thing in itself distinction, opening with the world is my idea. Then moving past Kant, what we are in ourselves is will. Okay. So that's a interesting claim. All right. So, but he's not quite there yet. He's not quite writing will and representation yet.
Mhm.
He goes to Berlin, and I'm almost halfway there, and I'm going to speed it up here. In the fall of 1809, he matriculated as a student of medicine. We already know that. As soon as the second semester, he was already transferring to the humanities, studied Plato and Kant. And then he went from 1811 to 1813 to the University of Berlin. where he heard Fichte and Schleiermacher, and he really didn't appreciate them that much. Um, and I'm gonna skip a few of the readings that I was thinking about doing just in the interest of time. Also, we're really in the philosophical weeds here. If you want to study this philosophy, this is not the episode that's going to get you there. We're no, but we're a biography podcast. The philosophical ideas are
Yeah,
important, but it's like when we did our Johnny Cash episode, we're not breaking down chords for you.
right.
Like it's about the biography. But I would encourage you to read him. Read get the essential Schopenhauer book here. It's very fascinating. And as I read, it's very accessible. This isn't like you don't have to have a master's degree in epistemology or philosophy or whatever to read to read him and to get something from it. It's very interesting. Okay, so but there was another form of insanity intruding on Schopenhauer's studies. As he prepared to write his dissertation, Napoleon's Grand Armée passed through Berlin in the spring of 1812, hell-bent on compelling Alexander I of Russia to remain in the continental system and to forestall his invasion of Poland. The results of Napoleon's campaign against Russia were disastrous. The Grand Armée was forced to make a grand retreat. What once had been an army of more than 600,000 souls was reduced to approximately 30,000 men. And the devastation of battles, the disastrous hard freeze of the Russian winter, don't invade Russia in the winter.
It's not a good idea.
Starvation, not a good idea. And capture. Emboldened by Bonaparte's enfeebled condition, Prussia joined England, Russia, Sweden, Austria, and a number of other German states and declared war on France. After the Battle of Lützen in May 1813, it appeared as if Berlin would be attacked. Many of Schopenhauer's professors and fellow students took up arms. Wolff and Fichte armed themselves to the teeth, and Schleiermacher preached to the choir, turning inchoate feeling into patriotic charge. But just as Johanna's description of the French sacking of Weimar had failed to stir patriotic passions in her son, Schopenhauer was moved simply to pay for the uniform and gear for one of his friends. Schopenhauer fled Berlin in such a rush that he failed to bid farewell to Wolff, one of his professors or friends. He had causes other than nationalistic ones in mind. As he wrote in his private diary, he fled Berlin because I was haunted by the fear of being pressed into military service. Besides, he also had in mind his dissertation. All right. So our poodle loving ballroom incel was not going to our poodle loving
Not a war hero.
No, he was not going to take up arms against Napoleon. No, he had other things on his mind. All right. So he finishes his dissertation in the summer of 1813 in a town called Rudolstadt. And it is the thing he writes is über die vierfache Wurzel des Satzes vom zureichenden Gründe, on the fourfold root of the principle of sufficient reason. Yo. That's an acting warm up there. On the fourfold root of the principle of sufficient reason. Say it 10 times fast. All right. So this is his dissertation, and he would end up getting his PhD or his doctorate or whatever they would call it then, magna cum laude. It was a big, it did well. His mother did not like it. His mother did not think anyone would read it. We'll talk about it. There's a little bit about the seriousness of lust in here, which I think is very interesting. Let me find here. Schopenhauer's reflections on the empirical and better consciousness moved him to consider that which binds a person to the ephemeral world of misery and despair, and that which liberates one from this veil of tears. He quotes his beloved Stirner, "There is no passion so serious as lust. The seriousness of lust is the seriousness of animality, and animals do not laugh. Copulating couples express this seriousness, and the act perpetuates and thereby affirms this world. Indeed, the focal point of this affirmation of temporal consciousness is the satisfaction of the sex drive. Yet, in distinguished and brilliant people, there are moments during which their sexual and mental activities reach their peak at the same time, and in such times reason can once more only play an instrumental role. Yet, as the faculty for perceiving the totality of life in its oneness, as the bond between temporal and better consciousness, reason is historically acquainted with both principles. It can, at the moment when consciousness is absorbed in cupidity, vividly picture itself the maxim to take the other direction, a maxim that has sprung from the better consciousness. However, the faculty of reason holds up such a maxim only as a lifeless concept against a living desire, but it represents it as such and makes choice possible, that is to say, freedom, whose condition it is. The choice, he continues, is between the kingdom of darkness, of need, desire, and illusion, and the kingdom of light, of repose, joy, amiability, harmony, and peace. The choice is, paradoxically, both infinitely difficult and infinitely easy. To illustrate this, Schopenhauer mentions a poem about a knight. His task is to enter a castle which is surrounded by a rapidly spinning wall with a single narrow portal. The knight closes his eyes, gives spur to his horse, and gallops full tilt through the gate. The poem symbolizes virtue, he continued, the path to light. To achieve this immensely difficult, the impossible, we need only will, but will we must. Not quite a Kierkegaardian leap of faith, but a gallop to virtue by the knight of the better consciousness. It is a willed act that quiets will. Okay, get it? We are creatures of lust and will and desire, and if we can just will a silencing of this, we can cross over to a better place.
Right.
Seems like a very common idea now, maybe not so much
Hmm.
at the time. Different
Yeah.
way of thinking. Okay. So he writes on the Fourfold Root, and he sets out a master key to his philosophy, the four modes of sufficient reason: becoming, knowing, being, and acting. Okay. We read just a little bit about this. Again, in the interest of time, this isn't even the major work. On the Fourfold Root of the Principle of Sufficient Reason is an elaboration on the classical principle of sufficient reason, written by German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer. So the idea of sufficient reason states that everything must have a reason or cause. So you can sort of think of reason not in the sense of like reasoning, but in the sense of
Hmm.
like causality. Okay.
Right.
Um, so it was formulated in the modern world by Leibniz. It's an Enlightenment idea. The post Kantian philosopher Schopenhauer elaborated the principle and used it as the foundation of his system. Some philosophers have associated the principle of sufficient reason with ex nihilo nihil fit. Nothing comes from nothing. Causality. And the
Hmm.
most famous example of this would be Descartes, cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. He
Yeah.
was trying to figure out like the cause of his beingness. Well, I think, so clearly I exist, right? They know some people who
Right.
don't think, so I don't know whether they exist or not, but it's the people without
Well, I
the
mean,
inner
you
monologue.
you are apparently willing them to exist, so
Yeah,
you're
right.
working
Well,
overtime for them.
sure. Now you're getting into, I think, what they call sociopathy, Abby. We want to probably avoid that. Probably want to avoid that. Um,
Wouldn't a lot of
okay,
Christianity be about will against lust and desire?
absolutely, but for different reasons.
Hmm.
For different reasons. Everything rooted in principally in Christ. But also like fundamentally, and I'm not a theologian, but fundamentally, though I play one on a podcast. Um,
Yay.
they no, but just fundamentally this idea that like there's nothing that we can do in our willing as Christians that would guarantee us grace, and that Christ has already given us that, and that what we have to do is surrender and accept Christ's will. So in a
Right.
way, yeah, it is similar. These things are not. You could write
That
an
you're
interesting
giving your
paper.
will to somebody else instead of yourself.
Right. Or even just accepting you don't have control over your own will. You can't be
Hmm.
the knight who can. If I was that knight, I would hit the wall.
Right.
Like accepting that, and then you could see how Schopenhauer would influence Nietzsche, but Nietzsche would turn on Schopenhauer at the end. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Okay, let's see here. Um, Okay, so he's back with his family. Oh yes, let's read some of this. Um, so Johanna writes her book about the European tour, and it's very successful.
Oh,
Okay, Arthur's teacher in Berlin, a man whose judgment he valued, the philologist, studies language. Tolkien was a philologist.
okay.
We may be covering Tolkien 2026 season 6. Art of Darkness. Stay tuned. Going to be a special one. All right. In any case, um, the philologist Friedrich August Wolff, this is the Wolff fellow, was enthralled by Johanna's book, as was Johann Gries, the translator of Calderon. It was likely that the success of Johanna's reminiscences of the Grand European Tour, which included observations drawn from Arthur's travel journal, led to the often repeated and earlier described exchange between mother and son, where Johanna derisively described the fourfold root as something written for pharmacists, and topping her son's retort that his would still be read when scarcely a copy of her writing would be available. So they
Oh,
got at it about each other's writing by
I
saying that the entire
see.
printing. So she says the fourfold root is something written for pharmacists. To which he says his my they're going to be reading my stuff when your stuff is no longer available. To that she says the entire printing of his dissertation would still be in the shops. Nobody's buying it. That's why it'll still be available. Very funny. So but also like tinged with yeah. This witty but hurtful repartee between mother and son concerning the literary significance of their writing was symptomatic of the deep tensions running within the household in January of 1814. Arthur invited an impoverished student, Joseph Gans, who he had befriended in Berlin, to live with him. He supported Gans, who quite naturally sided with his friend and benefactor during his quarrels with Johanna and I think a suitor of his sister, etc. Um,
I think this should be a new season of Ryan Murphy's Feud.
it's really good. This would be a good movie. I would watch this biopic. After 4 months, but can you find an actor ugly enough, to play him? After 4 months of heated confrontations, punctuated by periods of icy silence during which the warring inhabitants of the same household exchanged letters carried by servants, Johanna decided to purge her quarters of her obstinate, moody, and combative son. First, she pleaded economic grounds. She needed income. Um, this, of course, did not sit well with Schopenhauer, who all along feared that this suitor would assume the father's position. Now, Johanna wanted to replace him with her friend. Um, I think it's this not a suitor. This is her like male buddy. In any
Right.
case, it's a weird situation. It's like something out of Curb Your Enthusiasm, right? Or not Curb. Arrested Development.
Right.
It's very much that. He offered to pay more for his and his friend's lodging, but he could not completely repress his ill will. He also
Mother boy.
insinuated that Johanna had spent on herself money he provided to help support his grandmother. It's not clear whether this accusation led to an especially bitter argument between mother and son on May 16th, which concluded with a highly agitated Arthur violently slamming the door behind him as he stormed out of his mother's room. And so she and Adele fled to Jena, leaving behind a letter which read in part, the door that you slammed so loudly yesterday after you had conducted yourself extremely improperly toward your mother closed forever between you and me. I am tired of enduring your behavior any longer. I am going to the country, and I will not return home until I know that you are gone. I owe it to my health, since a second scene like that of yesterday would bring on a stroke that might prove fatal. You do not know what a mother's heart is like. The more sincerely it loves, the more painfully it feels every blow from a once beloved hand. Uh, Not Mueller, this fellow. This I swear here before God in whom I believe, but you yourself have ripped yourself away from me. Your mistrust, your criticism of my life, my choice of friends, your disdainful conduct toward me, your contempt for my sex, your clearly pronounced reluctance to contribute to my joy, your greed, your moods that you freely vent in my presence without respect for me, this and still much more makes you appear to me thoroughly malicious. This separates us, if not forever, then until you are returned to me repentant and reformed. Only then will I graciously receive you. Remain as you are. I will never see you again. My duty toward you has ended. Move on. I write this with profound pain, but it must be so if I am to live and remain healthy. Thus is this the end. I have ordered that you will be served as usual in my house until Thursday morning. Johanna concluded the letter with the wish that her disowned son should live and be as happy as you can be. About their flight to Jena, Adele wrote her friend Ottilie that they did so in order to flee a person who will still bring endless misery to us. Schopenhauer. Schopenhauer had managed now to put those close to him at a distance. Okay. Whew. Yep. Yep. People will read my work long after the rubbish you write is totally forgotten. Um, so just a little bit about his appearance, right? We're about a little past midway here, and we're doing
Okay.
good. I'll speed it up. I'm having fun. This is a fun one. While living in Dresden, there was a painter named Ruhl who made a flattering portrait that improved some of Schopenhauer's unattractive physical features,
So
which
that
was a
he was
polite way
using
of,
that as the profile pic on his app.
yeah, absolutely. He had that for like 7 years, Arthur. You didn't want to get that
Yeah.
updated? Got a little gray hair. No, this is fun. This is fun. It's a very, very flattering portrait. Um, Schopenhauer himself seemed aware that women usually do not find him very charming or physically attractive, according to a correspondence. He would frequent whorehouses and prostitutes for much of his life and never marry. It's one thing to see prostitutes and visit whorehouses. It's another thing to frequent them.
Maybe he had like a loyalty card or something.
Mm-hmm. A punch card. We're going to come to that.
Yeah, punch card. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He
The-
wouldn't.
oh,
He wouldn't.
oh,
Put, he, no, he
there was
wouldn't. He
actually
wouldn't.
a punch card.
He wouldn't. No, he wouldn't punch the whores, as far as I know. But that there comes an incident. The incident is coming. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Remember, 150 taler are what was it the monthly salary of
Of a civil servant.
a civil servant? Okay. Remember
Yeah.
that. Okay. Um. So they break. They after this they would never again meet in person.
Wow.
That was a real. It was over. Done. Little more. You are unbearable and burdensome and very hard to live with. All your good qualities are overshadowed by your conceit and made useless to the world simply because you cannot restrain your propensity to pick holes in other people. Okay. It's around this time that he works on Goethe and color. Goethe enlists Schopenhauer, a hungry 25-year-old Kantian, to help with problems in zur Farbenlehre, in like on learning colors, on color, basically. And that's what he gets published after his dissertation with Goethe. And they eventually kind of have a falling out. It's a book called Theory of Colors, is what it is. And about the poet's views on the nature of colors and how they are perceived by humans. Interesting. Although Goethe's work was rejected by some physicists, a number of philosophers and physicists have concerned themselves with it, including Schopenhauer and Wittgenstein and others. I'm not going to go too far down this rabbit hole because it's not, a major work. But he collaborated with Goethe at 25. Okay,
It's
big
pretty
deal.
cool.
Okay, yeah. So now, but at this point, I think he's already writing the big book. Okay, so he publishes On Vision and Colors. While he admired Goethe, he disagreed with part of Goethe's account and claimed to have demonstrated the a priori role of causality, so the happening before the pre-existing condition of causality in perception through color, tying back to his Kantian project. And here's what he said. I was anxious to illustrate Goethe's theory, to explain it as a whole, and introduce it to the world at large. Okay, fine. He had a cooling of relations with Goethe, the collaboration, unsurprisingly. He probably better off working alone. I think our man here. Um, the collaboration turns into polite distance. Schopenhauer's self-assured corrections and theoretical departures irked Goethe. By 1816, their contact had thinned. And Cartwright, the biographers talk about the mismatch of temperaments and Schopenhauer's increasing tactlessness.
Right.
He's a young man, but I'm a genius too. I'm not Goethe now, but I'm a genius too. You just don't know it yet. You know. But apparently Goethe had read the fourfold, and maybe this is a page I do need to read. Da, 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 da. In any event, I believe Goethe had read the fourfold root and was pretty effusive about it. And the one thing probably led to the other thing. Um,
Hmm.
and Schopenhauer was just over the moon by that, of course. So, yeah. All right. Let's see here. Getting past vision and color. Now, this is very important. This is the missing influence so far.
Okay.
So we have Plato, we have Kant, we have the whole of Western philosophy. He assuredly knows the Bible back and forth, or at least very, very well, even if he doesn't consider it to be "quote unquote" capital T true. Um, he would have been educated in it, and under a fellow named Friedrich Meyer, who was in what they would then have called an Orientalist, a man who
Hmm.
studies the East, studies Asian culture, and a word we don't use anymore for whatever reason. Schopenhauer encounters the Upanishads in Latin, as well as Buddhist materials, and he puts them next to Kant and Plato, and that is how you get the fully formed Schopenhauer.
Right.
Right. He would call the Upanishads the production of the highest human wisdom. And here's a little bit about that he wrote on the Upanishads. Temples and churches, pagodas and mosques in all lands and in all ages, in splendor and vastness, testify to the metaphysical need of man, which, strong and ineradicable, follows closely upon his physical need. Certainly, whoever is satirically inclined might add that this metaphysical need is a modest fellow who is content with poor fare. It sometimes allows itself to be satisfied with clumsy fables and insipid tales. If only imprinted early enough, they are, for a man, adequate explanations of his existence and supports of his morality. Consider, for example, the Quran. This wretched book was sufficient to found a religion of the world, to satisfy the metaphysical need of innumerable millions of men for 1,200 years, to become the foundation of their morality and of no small contempt for death, and also to inspire them to bloody wars and most extended conquests. We find in it the saddest and poorest form of theism. He did not like theism. Much may be lost through translation, but I have not been able to discover one single valuable thought in it. Such things show that metaphysical capacity does not go hand in hand with the metaphysical need. Yet it will appear that in the early ages of the present surface of the earth, this was not the case, and that those who stood considerably nearer than we do to the beginning of the human race and the source of organic nature had also both greater energy of the intuitive faculty of knowledge and a truer disposition of mind, so that they were capable of a purer, more direct comprehension of the inner being of nature, and were thus in a position to satisfy the metaphysical need in a more worthy manner. Thus originated in the primitive ancestors of the Brahmins, the rishis, and almost superhuman conceptions which were afterwards set down in the Upanishads of the Vedas. So he's going to be hanging out in India, not Pakistan. Um,
Uh-huh.
One wonders if he attacked the Quran there because attacking the Bible would have been completely
Mm,
untenable. Like he can get
right.
away with attacking the Quran in that time, but that's a good example of how he operates. He DGAF Schopenhauer. It's not enough to praise the Upanishads. I have to tear down,
I,
this major world religion while I'm doing it.
right.
Yeah. So, um, let's see here. But yeah, he really, really admired the Upanishads. Let's see here. 2 years later, in the Introduction to the World as Will and Representation, he would articulate the grounds for understanding his philosophy in a way that suggested the comparative significance of these light rays, Plato, Kant, and the Upanishads. A thorough acquaintance with Kant's philosophy, he said, was required. A knowledge of Plato would make one more susceptible to his views, and one who shared the benefits of the Vedas, whose access had been made possible by the Upanishads, would be best prepared to hear what he had to say, because it would not appear to that reader, as it would to many others, that he spoke a foreign and hostile tongue. But immediately after making this assertion, he wrote, "If it did not sound too arrogant, I might assert that each of the disconnected utterances that make up the Upanishads could be derived as a consequence from the thought I am to impart, although conversely, my thought is by no means to be found in the Upanishads." He admired them a lot.
Hmm.
Um, uh, so yeah, he's a very important figure in the West's adoption of Eastern ideas. A very
Right.
early adopter of these ideas, and not just in a cosmetic or kind of an almost like aesthetic way, and like a real like I'm going to bake this into I'm post Kantian, and I'm taking these ideas from the Upanishads to figure out the world and mixing it in with Plato and Kant.
Hmm.
Very interesting. He does seem to be the guy to do it, even though maybe his language training, like now we would expect somebody to have what I guess Sanskrit for a lot of the stuff, or Hindu or Hindi or whatever. I don't know what languages you would
Hmm.
need to study to do this properly, but
Right.
he did it. He did it. So very interesting. All right, so now we're gonna get to um, the big, big, big book, which is The World as Will and Representation. Um, it was published in December of 1818. He would do this in Dresden, reading a little more, provided a safe haven for his conflicted life. He abandoned Weimar, deeply wounded by his mother's rejection, and he sought refuge in this Saxon city of around 50,000 souls, a city with which he was familiar even before his family reposed there for 10 days at the close of the European tour. He really enjoyed Dresden, and it is the birthplace of the world as will and representation, whose ideas he would spend the remainder of his life seeking to clarify, to correct, and to extend into ever new domains of thought. Intellectually, he was always connected to Dresden. So he's back in Dresden. Um, let's see. Um, he really is anti-Hegelian. Um, let's see what else here. I just want to get to where we need to be. Um, did I want to make sure I didn't miss the Berlin stuff. Let me just make sure I didn't miss that. I got to look
Okay.
up Hegel in my outline. Oh yeah, no, this is where it's happening. All right, all right. Um, so he writes the masterpiece between 1814 and 1818. So the key idea is the world is my idea. The world is my
Hmm.
representation. And in philosophy, the world has a very particular phrase or meaning. The world, it literally means all things that are knowable or that are perceived. That is the world. All right. So when a telescope goes that much further into deep space, the world gets bigger.
Right.
It wasn't there before. Right? It's just like history. People conflate history with the past. History is not the
Hmm.
past. History is what is written and recorded about the past. The past
Right.
is the past. History is something else.
Yeah.
Okay? Okay. This book is history. It's not the past. That makes sense? You with me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So in the Kantian framework, space, time, and causality. So space, time, we're 3+ hours into this pod, we're in the fourth hour, and
Hmm.
forms, and causality. So this causes that. Um, this podcast causes you to lose your job. Um, I'm just kidding. Of course it wouldn't. Um, not putting the Malouk on anybody. Um, they're forms of our cognition. The world we know is appearance. Okay. And then in book two, he goes beyond appearance. What things are in themselves is will, blind, aimless striving. Okay.
Hmm.
And then in book three, he gets into aesthetics, aesthetic contemplation. He talks about how in art we become, or in the consumption of great art, we become a pure willless subject of cognition. I think we all maybe know what that feels like. You get completely immersed in a film. It's almost like you're pure knowing,
Right.
right? You're third row back for a screening of Blue Velvet. It's like you wake up from a dream of this pure consciousness. You're listening to a great opera or taking in a great opera, or you're listening to a great symphony. You're gone for 2 hours somehow,
Okay.
awash in consciousness with great art. Right?
Right.
I mean, Brecht would reject this. Brecht would be like, no, we have to sit and nine. We have to sit and think critically as we have watching.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
like not that's not Schopenhauer's rather romantic idea of
yeah.
the
Okay.
immersiveness of art, right? Like you get lost in the music. That would be the
So we're letting go of this willing of things when we are experiencing art.
I think that's kind of the idea. Let me read a little bit. This isn't where I was going to read it, but let me find it. Um, in the book, Metaphysics of the Beautiful and Aesthetics, and on the inner nature of art. So let me find that. On the inner nature of art. Not merely philosophy, but also the fine arts work at bottom towards the solution of the problem of existence. For in every mind which once gives itself up to the purely objective contemplation of the world, a desire has been awakened, however concealed and unconscious, to comprehend the true nature of things, of life, and of existence. For this alone is of interest to the intellect as such, in other words, to the subject of knowing which has become free from the aims of the will and is therefore pure. Just as for the subject knowing as mere individual, only the aims and ends of the will have interest. For this reason, the result of every purely objective and so of every artistic apprehension of things is an expression more of the true nature of life and of existence, more an answer to the question, what is life? Every genuine and successful work of art answers this question in its own way, quite calmly and serenely. But all the arts speak only the naive and childlike language of perception, not the abstract and serious language of reflection. Their answer is thus a fleeting image, not a permanent universal knowledge. Thus, for perception, every work of art answers that question. Every painting, every statue, every poem, every scene on the stage. Music also answers it more profoundly indeed than do all the others, since in a language intelligible with absolute directness, yet not capable of translation into that of our faculty of reason, it expresses the innermost nature of all life and existence. Thus, all the other arts together hold before the questioner an image or picture of perception and say, look here, this is life. However correct their answer may be, it will yet always afford only a temporary, not a complete and final satisfaction. For they always give only a fragment, an example instead of the rule, not the whole, which can be given only in the universality of the concept. Therefore, it is the task of philosophy to give for the concept, and hence for reflection and in the abstract, a reply to that question, which on that very account is permanent and satisfactory for all time. Moreover, we see here on what the relationship between philosophy and the fine arts rests, and can conclude from this to what extent the capacity for the two, though very different in its tendency and in secondary matters, is yet radically the same. Accordingly, almost done, every work of art really endeavors to show us life and things as they are in reality, but these cannot be grasped directly by everyone through the mist of objective and subjective contingencies. Art takes away this mist. And that's just the beginning of it. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, there's a reason artists flock to Schopenhauer. The works of, I'm going to read them one more little bit. The works of poets, sculptors, podcasters, and pictorial or graphic artists generally contain an acknowledged treasure of profound wisdom just because the wisdom of the nature of things themselves speaks from them. So he is saying that we are giving you the Ding an sich, Zeke, whatever. You're getting the thing through art, which is pure will. Love that idea. Fascinating. And it's will under command, largely. Great works of art. Beethoven wasn't, buck naked, drunk, when he was writing the Ninth, right? Takes willpower, and it's beyond reason. So in a way, art to him proves that we can know the thing in itself. that interesting idea.
It is an
Abby's.
interesting idea.
Hmm.
But no, I'm just thinking, are we then, if this is, you know, a thing to operate by, are we then, almost doing, because I can't find a different word, a blasphemy to try to rate or criticize or grade it?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what Schopenhauer would say. I mean, in purely practical terms, yeah, you have to sit down and decide what show to go see. And if something has 2 stars and another thing has 5 stars, it's just quicker for people. But it reduces it to that mercantile kind of thing because the two-star show on the night you go see it might be a greater experience for you,
Hmm.
right? So I think I don't know what he would say about that. Yeah, but he would probably say it's a perversion of the artistic sense, like what art is meant to be. But it also probably wouldn't surprise him as the son of merchants.
Right.
But he would also say you can just ignore all of that and then it doesn't exist. You don't
True.
have to read the
Yeah.
reviews, you know. So he's going to get this book published. Schopenhauer is the philosopher for artists, and you have to understand how fraught this is as somebody who knows how misogynistic that one essay is, and then you read something like that and you go, "Damn, that is you slinging heat, man. That is cool." And then you're just like, "Oh man," but you're the ballroom incel.
Yeah, the
I
ballroom. I mean, I guess, he is still a human who,
yeah, yeah, it's a complicated guy,
uh, complicated guy. Even a
but I
broken
mean
clock
that.
is right
I
two
mean,
times a day.
sure, sure. But I mean that essay, which we will read on the After Dark for patrons,
Mhm.
he was probably just getting revenge on his mother and the women who rejected him and the marriage he couldn't have. It's like it's very petty. It's not a man in control of his will necessarily. All right.
No, it's not. But it is just, I don't know. It's upsetting every time women are reduced to non-people.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's upsetting when men are reduced to non-people. Like yeah. I mean, yeah, we'll draft your ass. Like go fight this war.
Yes,
For
but that is men doing that to you. It's not women doing that to you.
not yet. We'll see what it looks like in Europe in 100 years. Um, yeah, like men are friends to other men, Abby. Like old men are friends to young men. Sure. Anyway,
No, yeah.
um, let's not get into it. Let's save it for the after dark. Save it for the after dark.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Battle of the Sexes on Art of Darkness. Artofdarkpod.com. If you want to email us, artofdarkpod@gmail.com. We're looking for darkroom guests for 2026. If you like one of our subjects and you yourself are an artist, if you have opinions about Schopenhauer, you got a book, you got a project you're working on, we would love to hang out with you for 90 minutes, artofdarkpod@gmail.com. And like I said, next year you're going to be able to sponsor episodes. You're going to be able to donate a certain amount, get a note read on air. You can treat it like an ad if you got a show you're doing. Cheap way to promote the show to tens of thousands of people. And if you want to get a core episode done, if you're like, damn it, I want to hear Nietzsche. I want to hear Nietzsche now. You can donate a certain amount and sponsor that episode, and we will be forced to do it. The only subject we outright will not do is the Austrian painter, because we've said we won't do that until it's time to kill the show. All right, so stay tuned. Of course, he's getting this book published. Schopenhauer had the audacity to lay down terms for publication. The book should appear next Michaelmas, the Mass of Saint Michael the Archangel, on the 29th of September, 1818, in a run no greater than 800 copies. It should be in a single volume produced on high quality paper. It should appear in octavo with each page having wide margins and no more than 30 lines of sharp type on each page. The work must be proofread 3 times, the last by a scholar who would read the proofs against the manuscript. He would deliver the first 2/3 of the manuscript by the middle of July and the remainder no later than early September. Brockhaus, the publisher, would have the rights for a second edition. In return, Schopenhauer requested the hardly worth mentioning honorarium of 1 ducat per printed sheet and 10 author's copies. Brockhaus accepted the author's terms and promised him the honorarium upon receipt of the manuscript. He also desired whether Schopenhauer. He also inquired whether Schopenhauer desired a contract, both to put his mind at ease and to sate the desires associated with his training in business. Schopenhauer requested a formal contract. He also assured the publisher that his work would not face any obstacles with the censor. He had not uttered a syllable against the government, had said nothing that would offend common decency, and had not launched a direct attack against the church. In fact, he wrote in the final book of will and representation, a moral philosophy is presented that agrees exactly with genuine Christianity. Nevertheless, in case of difficulties, because his work did clash with some Judeo-Christian dogma, Schopenhauer recommended that Brockhaus could have the book published in the more liberal cities of Jena or Meersburg. Besides, he added, being banned is not a misfortune for a book. Brockhaus accepted Schopenhauer's request and sent him a contract in which he articulated all of Schopenhauer's initial terms, adding that he would have it printed in Altenberg, where it would pass the censor. Brockhaus probably knew from the onset that he was dealing with a nervous or difficult personality. And it goes on. So, but he gets it published. And this is the one that is the big deal. All right. So, and it comes in 4 books. And the first book is Representation. So, the world as appearance structured by space, time, and causality. 2 is Will. The thing in itself is will, a blind, striving essence objectified in nature and in us. The modern label is apparently metaphysical voluntarism. I'm not going to break that down. We're just going to let that sit. The third book is on aesthetics. In disinterested contemplation, we become pure willless subject of knowledge. Art, especially music, gives temporary release from willing. Very interesting idea. And then the 4th book is Ethics and Asceticism. So the idea of the saint negating individual will. What does a saint do? They give their will over to Christ and achieve moral purity. So he travels through Italy, and then the family has some money problems that are quite serious, and not just him. So their bank, A.L. Moule and Company, collapses. Okay? And there's a lot about this. I think the bank offers Johanna and Adele like 1/10 of their money.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, let me read this. And Schopenhauer, Arthur is like, nope, I want all my fucking money. I want all of my money. I'm going to break your damn knees, Moule. Like, seriously, I mean, he refuses to capitulate. I admire him for this too. It's like, I mean, this is a period, there were no central banks, I don't think. No, not this early. There was no central banking. So you're just shit out of luck if your bank goes belly up. You're just cooked. Arthur had diversified. He had his money spread around. It sounds like he handled it properly. That merchant training, sometimes you just got to take your lumps to get that merchant training. And the poor ladies on the other side, they're too busy giving Goethe butterbread over here and talking about colors and shit. And they are out of luck. So here, when he was in Naples, he loved Italy. He's got some very fun writing about Italy. And I think that's where he contracted syphilis, by the way. When he was in Naples, if you're going to contract syphilis, do it in Italy.
Yeah, do it somewhere nice.
Yeah, do it somewhere. Yeah, do it in tomato Europe. When he was in Naples, Schopenhauer received Adele's letter describing Goethe's reception of his book. When he returned to Rome a month later, his head was swimming with vainglorious thoughts about his philosophy. So Goethe must have been over the moon about will and representation. He composed a poem celebrating himself, which concluded with the line, "Posterity will erect a monument to me." Abby, that's that face. In a cooler moment, he crossed out the word monument and substituted memorial. Perhaps he was being prophetic as well as hasty in his modesty, because in 1895, a monument was erected to him in the north end of the Rechnei Graben in Frankfurt. So he does actually, he becomes a statue. In May, he returned to Naples, and in June, he ventured to Milan. There, he received a disturbing letter from his sister informing him that the banking house of A.L. Mühl in Danzig had suspended payments. Johanna and Adele had invested their entire inheritances with Mühl. Diversify, people.
Mm.
And Arthur, who wisely ignored his mother's advice that he should do likewise, still had entrusted more than a third of his inheritance to Moole. Adele was beside herself. Her mother's somewhat lavish lifestyle had consumed most of her money and was beginning to eat away at Adele's. For the time being, Johanna and Adele were out of money. It's my least favorite phrase in the English language is out of
Yeah.
money. They immediately dismissed their servants, and following the advice of their cousin and Schopenhauer's godfather, they borrowed money to travel to Danzig to discuss the settlement with Moole, who had warned his creditors that this was needed to avoid bankruptcy. Adele was beside herself. How will we live? She wrote her brother. My heart is crushed by mother's condition and by the departure that stands before me. At least, she concluded, one of them was not completely out of luck because Schopenhauer had only 8,000 taler with Moole. She also conveyed, whoa, 8,000 taller. Didn't we establish that like 150 was a
Uh,
month's salary for a
yeah.
holy shit. Okay, let's do some math here. Um, so let's say the senior official is what? It'd be $100,000 in today's money. So it's
Hmm.
8,000 divided by 150. That's a month's salary. So 120, or that we do 12. So the annual salary would be like 640 taller. And we've decided that that's worth $100,000. Let's just say,
Hmm.
just for nice round number. So let's divide that by 8,000. Oh yeah, he's got like $1 million. He's got or more. More. Hang on.
Yeah, it's shipping money.
Yeah, he's got like I think he's got fuck you money. I think I messed that math up. So he's got 8,000 taller divided by 150, 53. Well, wait, how does that work? So this guy 150, so it's 150 times 12, 1,800. Yeah, he's got good money. He's got hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not $1 million. Something like that. We're not math people on Art of Darkness. Okay,
How
so if
how are we spelling taller?
TALER, if 150 taller are equivalent to 100 USD now today, and Arthur Schopenhauer, I should have done this before the show, but this is good. This is a good little break. Arthur Schopenhauer had a worth of what was it? 8,000 taller in a
Uh-huh.
bank. How much
And
is
that's only
that
a third
worth?
of
Yeah, and
what
that
he
no, no,
had.
and that's not no, 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 and that's not we don't even know if it's a third or what it is. He's got way
Okay.
more than that. Um, oh yeah, this is a lot of money. My math is terrible, and also I'm in word cell mode right now, so like switching to
Yeah,
math
yeah.
mode is not. I promise I'm not that bad at math, people. I just am like I just need to rely on
Oh,
the.
I am.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. No, I got yeah. So he would have. Let's see. Yeah, $5 million with this guy
Right.
ish. Okay, and that's not all of his money.
That's not all. Oh God.
Crazy. Yeah, and you bet your ass if somebody's sitting on 5 million of my dollars and I get a letter saying we don't have it
Sorry.
anymore,
We
I'm
lost it.
whoops, I'm getting on a train. Um, given Schopenhauer's view of
That's some
Johanna's business
serious whore
acumen,
money.
yeah, this right. She also conveyed the message from their mother that Johanna would do everything she could to protect her son's investment. Given Schopenhauer's view of Johanna's business acumen, this remark brought him no consolation. The mule crisis moved Schopenhauer to make a grand gesture. He offered to divide his money with his family. It's
That was
nice.
nice of him.
Yep. Johanna rebuffed his aid just as she would, that just she, yeah, no. Whereas her refusal of aid by her one-time house guest, that fellow we were talking about earlier, her rejection of her son's pledge was a matter of wrath. Um, Instead of repairing his damaged relationship with his mother, his offer made the relationship worse, and it further strained the increasingly tenuous relationship between mother and daughter. Irritated by his
Mm.
mother's foolish investment with a single firm, and still bemoaning that what he viewed as his mother's lavish lifestyle, he would always live within his means. From this point, he accompanied his pledge of financial support with a remark made for Adele's eyes only. He wrote his sister that he would share his assets, although she had honored the memory of her husband, of my father, neither in his son nor in his daughter. Adele dismissed the remark. Um, so, a little bit more about what would happen here. To wiggle his way out of a potential bankruptcy, Moule pressed his creditors for a settlement of 30% of their capital. Both Johanna and Adele favored the offer, and Adele begged her brother to also accept Moule's terms. The banker had convinced the Schopenhauer women that it was either this or bankruptcy, in which case all would be lost. Schopenhauer was unmoved by his sister's pleas, and he recommended that she should not settle and join him to wait for Moule to become solvent. Moule himself wrote his resolute creditor that he had debts of $430,000 and assets of
Wow.
130,000, figures that supported his settlement offer. Schopenhauer stood pat, declining his creditor's offer. He was willing to call what he viewed as Moule's self-serving bluff. The women, however, had 22,000 taler at stake. Jesus. Well over like 10, 12, 14 million. Almost all of which was Adele's. They only had 2,000 taler left in Weimar, and they owed, oh, only 2,000 taler, only $1 million. And they
Only.
owed 800 to Quant. Oh, so not even. They were unwilling to gamble. They capitulated to Moule, but only after making a side deal. They would receive a life annuity of 300 taler and four paintings. When Adele told Schopenhauer about this side settlement, it is likely that she confirmed his suspicions about his family's motives. From his perspective, it seemed as if his mother and sister were only out for themselves. His correspondence with his sister became increasingly dark and distressing. As this affair played out, at one point he threatened to withhold the small stipend that he contributed to the support of his aunt, Julie Trosner, a petty and mean-spirited act that amazed Adele. Johanna, who had also helped support her sister, had pledged to continue this support despite her own precarious conditions. He also gave free expression to his suspicion about Moule's honesty and ultimately about the motives of his family. And Adele would say, "Do not harden your heart against me," she pleaded. "No one on earth loves you like me. Think of what that means and hold fast to that heart which had not been easily won." Okay. All right. So he holds fast and Moule settles. Schopenhauer demands full payment plus interest. Moule asks one more time. He could pay if he had between 3 to 6 years. He told Schopenhauer that he possessed a fine flock of genuine merino sheep, which should bring 2,400 taler in 3 or 4 years. He had security. He told his unrelenting creditor a substantial life insurance policy would protect Schopenhauer if something were to happen to him. And if he doubted his sincerity and honesty concerning his promise to repay, Schopenhauer could come live with him in banking was different then, in Ulkau and observe firsthand his business conduct. He told Schopenhauer rejected this. He told the businessman that he was not just another merino sheep willing to graze among his flock. He would not be fleeced. This author's having a good time. As for his life insurance policy, there was no security. Whether he was paid and whether Moule lived were two distinct events. But of course, Schopenhauer sneered, "I will not strike you dead in order to be paid." He declined the invitation to move. Let's see. Right. 2 1/3 years after the beginning of the Moule crisis, he managed to recoup his money with interest.
Wow.
Yep. Yep. He received 9,400 taler from his reluctant debtor in three payments. When he submitted his first bill, Schopenhauer set aside the question of his insolvency. He knew Moule had bought out many of his creditors at 30%, and when he tried to move the philosopher to return to his earlier offer of 70%, Schopenhauer knew he had him. 100% is better than 70%, and by offering 70%, Schopenhauer told Moule that he knew he could pay this bill. Therefore, should you nevertheless still want to plead insolvency, I will prove the opposite to you through the famous argument that the great Kant introduced into philosophy in order to prove the moral freedom of humans, namely the inference from ought to can. Okay, so he gets all his money back. Listen, the merchant training paid off, and he's
Yeah.
somewhere in his heart is like, what would my father do? My father would not capitulate. I'm a man. You're not gonna take me for $1.5 million. I want all my money back and interest, fucker. These whores aren't gonna pay for themselves, man. You know how expensive it is to treat syphilis? I assume it was probably pretty
I'm
inexpensive.
not I'm not pretty enough to have money problems.
Yeah, exactly. Do you have any idea how homely I am? Have you seen this portrait? This is me touched up. This is me with filter. I wonder how tall he is. All right. I'm going to stand up for 60 seconds. Abby, can you just give me an update? Where are you at? Where are you at with the 50-50 Johanna and Arthur? He's done some things to redeem himself, hasn't he?
He has done some things to redeem himself. Yeah, I mean he handled this money thing pretty cleverly, I will say. It was good he stood his ground on that. I think he still has some way to go in maybe growing up a little bit, being a little less obnoxious. The whole thing with Gert sounded a little obnoxious to me. So yeah, I think he's got some way to go to growing up, but uh being cut off from your family in that way can't be easy. I don't think. And I feel like we don't get a lot of like the nuts and bolts of what it is that actually went down between them for that letter to come about. Like you get a sort of sense of him being annoying and her being annoyed with him, but there's that sort of like missing reasons thing where it's like we don't know what the actual argument well, I'm not quite sure how this blew up in the way that it did.
Sure. Yeah, and we'll never know exactly what the day in and day out looks like and
No.
whose side is which. And we've all had situations like this where it'd be a
Hmm.
Rashomon type thing. Um, so we're going to take a brief little detour here. And I'll try to bring this in. We're into the last 5, 6 pages. And I'm going to move fast here. Um, so she wrote her, we're going to read about Johanna's books in contrast to our friend Arthur, her son. So she wrote, um,
5'7" allegedly.
who? Arthur?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not that short for then, but
No,
he's
not for then.
not a towering figure, you know. Doesn't
No,
have
that's
height to
like
make up for the
it
homeliness.
no, no. He's like ever so slightly shorter than me.
If he had for every inch taller than 5'7", the on women essay would have been a paragraph shorter.
It's just
If he had been 6'5", it
if
never
he'd
would have
been
been
six foot
written.
five, he'd be like, "Oh, everything looks great from up here. What
Yeah,
problems?"
yeah,
What
absolutely. They're
women
so cute. Pat, 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 pat. Literally, it would be on women. He would have been
on women?
on
Like
women, which is what we all want. That's what we all want. Um, okay, so after her travel book and she wrote a biography, she pivoted to fiction while running her salon. And her early novels sit in the Biedermeier Gesellschaftsroman lane, domestic plots, manners, social observations, strong female centers, and the theme of Entsagung, renunciation, that Goethe and others had made fashionable. Her first great hit was Gabrielle in 3 volumes, published by Brockhaus, our friend who published her son. Um, and then they would get reprints and collected editions. Okay, so Gabrielle, die Tante, the aunt, and then Sidonia. And here's Gabrielle, ein Roman in 3 Teilen, a novel in 3 parts, right? A novel of resignation that tracks a talented young woman negotiating love, status, and the limits set by class and propriety. Travel and art are leitmotifs. Contemporary reference books underline that Johanna used keen social observation and the era's renunciation theme. The book became her best known novel and was reprinted quickly. It went into a second edition right away. I'm sure that must have made Arthur so happy. And here's a little bit. There are moments in a woman's life in which the whole future, with its joys and its sorrows, is contained in a single decision. And for that very reason, such moments are so weighty. All right, okay. I just wanted to take a little detour there. So her son's over here suffering the weight of the world, contemplating will as the thing in itself, furiously concerned about the nature of sex and lust, and how we can't turn it off. And she's writing her very popular, fairly popular novels of manner, and it's they just could not be more fire and ice, really.
Yeah.
And yet they're both authors, they're both writers, they're both
Yeah.
very, yep.
They, I think if they just bonded over their similarities,
Hmm. Hmm.
there might not be
Yeah.
so many issues.
So we have a few major things left to cover here, real
Okay.
quick. Hegel. You don't know anything about Hegel, okay?
No.
Hegel, he goes to Berlin, okay? Everybody's interested in him because a
Hmm.
young man. I mean, he's worked with Goethe,
Yep.
graduated, got his dissertation with magna cum laude from, I think, from Jena is where he took it. And then he goes to Berlin. Hegel's there. Hegel is the rock star of philosophy at the time. He was a German philosopher, Hegel, and a major figure in the tradition of German idealism. His influence on Western philosophy extends across a wide range of topics, all of the topics. He was born in Stuttgart. His life spanned the transition between the Enlightenment and the Romantic movements. His thought was shaped by the French Revolution and the Napoleonic Wars. He strove to correct what he argued were untenable dualisms common in modern philosophy. Two ideas that I think are contradictory. I think is what of dualism, like the mind-body problem, right? Like, are we minds or are we bodies?
Hmm.
Where does consciousness live? Does it live in my
Right.
eyes? Like, well, what about a blind person? And so forth. Um, his principal achievement was the development of a comprehensive philosophical system, often termed absolute idealism, to account for reality as a unified whole. Central to this system is the concept of spirit or Geist, which Hegel presented as humankind coming to know itself through a historical process of rational development, and that process is the dialectic. The dialectic Marx picked up Hegel. The dialectic is thesis, um, antithesis, synthesis. And through that, we develop. And Marx would pick that up and say that's how history develops. The proletariat rises up, they're suppressed, a new idea is formed, a new order is formed, and this will continue until the proletariat finally sees and that's called the historical dialectic. The idea
Hmm.
that that the dialectic is driving us to an historical end, and the end is the complete revolution of the proletariat. That's the
Right.
fundamental Marxist idea is Hegelian. And please don't come at me if I'm. This is very hard to summarize this stuff. People spend their entire lives thinking about these ideas. I'm just trying to summarize this stuff as best I can. Hegel's influence has been profound and divisive. After his death, his followers split into rival right and left Hegelian camps. The left included Feuerbach and Marx, and they adapted his dialectical method for the materialist critiques of religion and society. And then others, this would become critical theory through the French. I mean, Hegel has a huge influence, and we still study him. And if you're going to get a philosophy degree, you're going to learn about Hegel
Hmm.
and these ideas. Um, or else I don't know what kind of school you're going to. But Schopenhauer hates Hegel. He really does not like Hegel. He for he has major philosophical differences.
Uh-huh.
Um, so let's see here. Uh, so he has that trouble with Moule. He returns to Dresden. Um, disturbed by the financial risk and the lack of responses to his book. So the book is, yeah, no, will and representation. No, it's not. 800 copies were printed, and it's not even getting him like he's not getting invited to go lecture. It's not a big hit. Okay, he's
Right.
kind of in the wilderness, toiling in the wilderness a little bit.
Didn't he
Um,
restrict it to 800 copies?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Which that's probably even that was probably a lot of copies.
Right.
800 copies of this book of philosophy by a guy who, yeah, he has a PhD, but he's a
Yeah.
complete unknown, and he's trying to. So, it's the
He'd
kind of thing
be
like
he'd be
if you
better off writing Merchants for Dummies.
yeah, right. How to merchant for dummies. How to bust your creditor's balls. How to
Yeah.
squeeze your creditor's balls in an anvil for dummies. Auf Deutsch. For Dummkopf.
You could
Um,
just sneak some will and
Dummkopfen.
representation into there.
Yeah, yeah. In this economy, will a representation in this economy? Um, so yeah, he decided to take an academic position since it provided him with both income and an opportunity to promote his views. Right, he wants to be a
Hmm.
professor now. And much like his courtships, this would end poorly, or it would just end in failure. He contacted his friends at universities in Heidelberg, Göttingen, and Berlin and found Berlin most attractive. He scheduled his lectures to coincide with those of the famous philosopher Hegel, whom Schopenhauer described as a clumsy charlatan. He was especially appalled by Hegel's supposedly poor knowledge of natural sciences and tried to engage him in a quarrel about it already at his test lecture in March of 1820. Hegel was also facing political suspicions at the time when many progressive professors were dismissed following certain decrees, while Schopenhauer carefully mentioned in his application that he had no interest in politics. So funny. Despite their differences in the arrogant request to schedule lectures at the same time as his own, Hegel still voted to accept Schopenhauer to the university. Only 5 students turned up to Schopenhauer's lectures, and he dropped out of academia. A later
Oh,
essay on university philosophy expressed his resentment toward the work conducted by academies. Um, and I have that, and I want to read Ich bin kein Berliner. Yeah, and they apparently the 5 of them show up, and then like eventually nobody showed up. It's tough, not
it
good.
is tough.
Nah,
Yeah.
that's a rough one. That is rough
Yeah.
going. So let's see here, and this is the philosophy at universities. I'm going to read a little bit. So he basically says the philosophy in the universities is, and this is a complaint people still make about philosophy, about literature, about art. He says philosophy in the universities essentially serves the government, and this is what he says. In the first place, the
Hmm.
government will not pay people to contradict directly or even only indirectly what it has had promulgated from all the pulpits by thousands of its appointed priests or religious teachers. For insofar as such a proceeding were effective, it would inevitably render ineffective the former organization. For it is well known that judgments cancel one another not merely through contradictory, but also through merely contrary opposites. Thus, for example, the judgment "the rose is red" is contradicted not merely by "it is not red," but also by "it is yellow." A judgment that, in this respect, achieves just as much or even more. Hence the maxim "improbant secus docentis." We reject and condemn the man who teaches something different. But through this circumstance, university philosophers land themselves in a very curious position whose open secret may here receive a few words. In all the other branches of knowledge, the professors are obliged only to teach as far as possible and to the best of their ability what is true and correct. But only in the case of professors of philosophy are we to understand the matter cum grano salis, which means with a grain of salt. Thus, we have here a curious state of affairs due to the fact that the problem of their stance is the same as that about which religion also in its way gives us information. I have therefore described religion as the metaphysics of the people. Accordingly, the professors of philosophy are also, of course, supposed to teach what is true and correct. But this must be fundamentally and essentially the same as that which is also taught by the established religion, that is likewise true and correct. This is the origin of that naive utterance already quoted in my criticism of the Kantian philosophy, which was made in 1840 by quite a reputable professor of philosophy. He said, if a philosophy denies the fundamental ideas of Christianity, then either it is false or even if true, it is of no use. From this, we see that in philosophy at the universities, truth occupies only a secondary place, and if called upon, she must get up and make room for another attribute. And so at universities, it is this that distinguishes philosophy from all other branches of knowledge that are taught there. Again, does not like the church. And there's
Really doesn't like the church.
no lie detected, right? But now today we would sort of have to go, okay, well, so what is the new church, and what are the things that university philosophy today could not contravene? Because there's always an ideal, there's always an absolute somewhere, and I'll just let that sit there. But I love that. That's just like me for real, like. And a lot of these Western philosophers are criticized for just sort of like reverse engineering Christianity in a way that is palatable to satisfy Enlightenment ideas of reason, but then coming to the same conclusions that the Christian church, the Catholic and the church came to, just through different words. But we're going to still end up with the same conclusions.
Mhm.
This looks a lot like the Ten Commandments. You know,
Yeah.
so it's like, it's cart before the egg, or cart before the egg. I'm so tired. Cart before the horse, or the cart before the egg.
Hey,
What does
yeah.
it
You
mean?
could, what does it mean?
This is what happens when we get into
You
hour
you
five.
have willed it to now be an egg and cart.
It's a
And
new
so
thing. The
therefore
egg in
it
the
is.
cart. I don't know why I said egg. We're gonna talk about Freud in a little bit. Coming up on hour
Oh
five,
God.
people. I'll bring it in. I'll bring it in. I'm gonna bring it in. All right. So I have to. I really have to. I'm gonna zoom past something, and I've hinted at this. I've teased this. 1821. He gets into a serious scandal. He has a quarrel with his neighbor, Caroline Louise Marquette. And I've got a link here from Heristical, The Philosopher and the Seamstress. This is a fellow named Jeremy Stangrum, December 2024. Looks to be a Substack. In A History of Western Philosophy, Bertrand Russell states that Arthur Schopenhauer was once so annoyed by an elderly seamstress who was talking to a friend outside the door of his apartment. It was like a room outside his apartment, like an
Mhm.
entrance room, that he threw her downstairs, causing her permanent injury. Brian McGee repeats this story in his book on Schopenhauer's philosophy. One day he asked a group of three chattering women to remove themselves. Two did, but the third refused. He became threatening. She obstinately refused to budge. He started pushing her, and a tussle ensued, which ended with his throwing her down the stairs. So he has an entire essay called On Noise. I think just maybe a tiny little bit of the tism in play here. Possibly it would be maybe
Yeah.
Johanna had some Tylenol before during the labor. Maybe there was some
Oh,
Tylenol, acetaminophen.
there was
Okay,
there was
okay,
no Tylenol.
you understand what I'm saying. Okay, so on Sunday, August 12th, 1821, Schopenhauer returned to his apartment on Niederlagstrasse in Berlin to find its entree inexplicably occupied by three chattering women. As per usual, he wasn't in the best frame of mind, with professional and personal troubles weighing heavily. Moreover, just 2 weeks earlier, he had complained to his landlady, Widow Becker, about a previous intrusion, and she had promised it wouldn't happen again. He was also expecting an imminent visit from Carolyn Medon, a 19-year-old singer and actress with whom he had begun a relationship. The prospect of this being
Mhm.
disrupted served only to increase his irritation. Unable to contact his landlady, he confronted the three women himself, telling them they weren't allowed to be in his space. Two of the three left, but the third woman, a 46-year-old seamstress who lived in a small chamber adjacent to Schopenhauer's rooms, refused, telling Schopenhauer that she was an honest person. This did not go down well. Schopenhauer called her an old wretch and attempted to remove her physically. Exactly what happened next is not definitively stated, with Schopenhauer and Marquette offering radically different accounts. Schopenhauer, surprise, surprise, suggests restraint in the face of unreasonable intransigence. He tried to persuade her to leave. Um, she refused to leave. It was only after she refused that he grabbed her around the torso and dragged her out of his entree. He threw her belongings out after her, but she re entered his apartment under the guise of looking for a missing trinket. Pushing and shoving ensued, and she fell, but he suggested she deliberately threw herself to the ground because she wasn't getting her own way and wanted to play the victim. She paints a different picture. She claimed that Schopenhauer grabbed her by the neck and dragged her for about 9 feet to the entree door before slamming her against the hallway wall and holding her there for a moment. The second time he ejected her, he injured her abdomen and right side by bending her backward over a commode with such force that she almost lost consciousness. She also alleges that he punched her, kicked her, bloodied her bonnet, and hurled derogatory epithets in her direction. The day after the incident, she filed a complaint against him, alleging assault. This was the start of a complex and lengthy legal process that ultimately went against Schopenhauer. The details of this process are thick, but he was fined $20 for causing minor injuries to his neighbor. The civil case dragged on for damages, dragged on
Mhm.
for nearly 6 years before it was settled in her favor in 1827. He was compelled to pay most of the court costs, and he only had to pay $60 a year. Um, Let me look that up. Uh, so until she died, um, and then when he died in 42, 15 years after the settlement, He said across her death certificate, apparently he wrote "Obit anus abit onus." The old woman has died. The burden has been lifted.
Oh
Um,
my God.
yeah. So, uh, yeah, fun. So I don't know. We don't know. We don't know the full story. Um, how was she seriously injured? Was it an accident? Was she being belligerent? Um, I don't know. And I want to look up. Okay, I want to look up how much 60 taller would be worth. Um, what is 60? What is 60 taller worth? So, the misogyny comes out here. Um, you don't hear a lot of descriptions of chattering men, for example.
No.
I mean, according to this calculation, if 150 taller is $100,000, then this is $40,000 a year. It's a lot of money for
Hmm.
15 years. Yeah. So the court decided it was pretty serious. Um, I'm going to read on noise because the chattering is what got to him. um, 159. Let's see. Why were they hanging out there? One wonders. Probably just to piss him off. I'm going to read a little bit of this. Kant wrote an essay on the living forces, but I would like to write a dirge and threnod thereon, for their excessively frequent use in knocking, hammering, and banging has been throughout my life a daily torment to me. There are certainly those, quite a number, in fact, who smile at such things because they are not sensitive to noise. I just had construction all summer. It drove me to a nervous breakdown. It was so horrible. Um, I'm a sensitive young man too. Yet they are the very people who are also not sensitive to arguments, ideas, poetry, and works of art, in short, to mental impressions of every kind. For this is due to the toughness and solid texture of their brain substance.
Oh, fuck
on the
off.
other, on the other hand, okay, you got it. Okay. Well, on the other hand, in the biographies or other accounts of the personal statements of almost all great authors, such as Kant, Goethe, Lichtenberg, Jean Paul, I find complaints about the torture which thinkers have to endure from noise. If such complaints are not to be found in some authors, this is merely because the context did not lead up to them. I explain the matter as follows: a large diamond cut up into pieces is equal in value to just so many small ones, and an army dispersed and scattered, in other words, disbanded into small bodies, is no longer capable of anything. In the same way, a great mind is no more capable than an ordinary one the moment it is interrupted, disturbed, and diverted. For its superiority is conditioned by its concentrating all its powers, as does a concave mirror all its rays onto one point and object. And it is precisely here that it is prevented by a noisy interruption. This is why eminent minds have always thoroughly disliked every kind of disturbance, interruption, and diversion, but above all, the violent disturbance caused by din and noise. Goes on like that. I love that. I gotta focus. Like these chattering women. This is going to cost me $40,000 a year. He didn't think it
I'm
was
look
that.
I,
Yeah.
I'm looking at a picture which I'm assuming is the flattering portrait of him because it's
Mm.
him as a younger man, not him as a terrifying statue with like Krusty the Clown hair. But so looking at this flattering portrait, this is like this man being intelligent and wealthy and looking like this. I don't see him having that much of a problem with women unless he is also browbeating them with 90-minute lectures about how red is not red and then telling them to shut up when they talk back because he can't handle their chattering.
I know Goethe. I wrote a book with Goethe. Okay. I am going to blast through because we're in hour five here. I'm going to blast through um, his ideas on sex. Um, I feel like I have the wrong page. Let me see if I can find it. Hang tight. Tetragamy. Because it's really, really, really good stuff, and I don't want to lose it. It's so good. It's so crazy. Oh, damn, it's not in the. I think I can summarize it. Um, Let me see. Let me find it. Um, I could summarize it. His idea of the the best form of marriage would be that two men would take a wife, a young wife, remain married to her until she reached an age where she was undesirable because can no longer have children because women are desirable to men in their fertile window. Okay, this is his idea. This is what he's saying. Monogamy is unnatural.
Hmm.
Okay, and the ideal would be two men take a young wife, uh, and then they take a second young wife when the first wife is no longer of childbearing age. And they share both of those wives. And he's totally not thinking about double teaming a whore with his friend Anthony when he's coming up with this theory. That's
Yeah,
his
I
idea.
don't think he actually likes women.
Was it the Poodles or the flute?
I mean,
I
it was a
yeah.
combination of things.
I don't know. He apparently loved women. I mean, yeah. But I had you ever heard of tetragamy?
I had never heard of tetragamy. Uh, did he make it up?
Well, so listen. Okay, and this is just an overview. I just looked this up. Schopenhauer theorized about tetragamy, a system of four-person marriage, as an unpublished ideal to address natural human capacities for reproduction and economic needs in a more rational way than monogamy. This is the most Reddit fucking thing ever. Or it's like a stone conversation at the end of the night with your bros. It's like, bro, what if we could marry? I don't even know if bros would say this. It's just very Reddit. It's very
Bro,
nerdy. But anyway,
I love you, bro. We could just
yeah, I
live
love you,
together
bro. We
forever
could just
with two women.
yeah, exactly. Under this system, two young men would marry a young woman. Okay, so I think the
Mhm.
thinking we could follow. So let's follow this through reason. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Two young men combine their resources, right? So one of them is, you know, Ted manages Chipotle. Um, and imagine yourself, or imagine a young woman who needs to be supported, and she wants to have
Mhm.
children, right? And 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 uh, and Bill and Ted, Bill works at Chipotle, and Ted
Okay.
manages Chipotle, and they decide that they're going to marry, you know, Cynthia, and Cynthia is going to get supported by both their incomes,
It's
right?
just Cynthia.
And just Cynthia. Now, okay, a
In
marriage
in
unit, right, right. Under this system, two young men would marry a young woman, and as she aged and her reproductive abilities waned, so now Bill is the manager of Chipotle, and Ted is the regional manager at Chipotle. Now they've got more money, but she can't have babies anymore. Okay, they would marry then a new, younger woman to ensure continued procreation, but they wouldn't throw Cynthia to the curb. Now they're just four of them married together. That's tetragamy, and that's his rational. So if anybody's looking for like an alternative to the polygamy trap, you can fuck your life up with the tetragamy trap. That was his idea.
uh-huh.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But
Any thoughts?
we're in a time where women are averaging like 15 pregnancies or whatever.
Not in his family. Yeah.
How are we doing two men?
Now listen, I don't want to give this too much weight because this was unpublished. Okay. He came up
No,
with the term
I'm
tetragamy.
just
Yeah.
trying to reason out the logic of it.
It 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 this is amusing that he had. This is a thought
Okay.
that he had. So it's a fun thought experiment of how to destroy your
Okay. So
life
I mean
and
he's 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 come up with the dual income households, but a
yeah.
little ahead of its time
Yeah,
because the women are,
dinks with
they're not.
kids. Dinkswithkids.com. Yeah.
because the women are not working
Dual income
yet as
has kids. Dicks, basically.
di-
Dual income has kids. Dicks. Yeah,
but
no.
where like how does this was he just so modern thinking that he didn't have that whole like question of like parentage type thing
Right.
going on that
Right.
men seem to have an issue with?
That's addressed in the Cartwright book, and I can't remember what his answer to it was. Again, this is not a fully realized sort of
Hmm.
position. This is him just
No,
futzing
I'm
around in a
just
notebook. Yeah, I think it was something like
futzing around on the
that would
putt.
be. I think the point that he made was that that would be solved because over the course of her fertile window, both men would certainly
Maybe.
have an opportunity to sire children, and they would have the future young wife to look forward to for the
Right.
further siring of children.
For the further siring of children. And then you've got the built-in, like, not quite a grandmother, but
Right,
grandmother
like
type
an
woman.
auntie. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, I found the
I
pages that
mean,
I wanted to read.
hmm.
Yeah. So this is from the chapter Ich bin kein Berliner. Okay. All right. So he's in Berlin. I'm going to read some more. When at times I felt unhappy, this was by virtue of a misunderstanding of a flaw in my person. I then took myself to be other than I was and then lamented that other person's misery and distress. That is, for a privat docent, so I think like almost like an adjunct or like a professor, who does not become
Mhm.
a professor and has no one to hear his lectures, or for one of whom the Philistines speak ill and the gossips spread stories, or for the defendant in an assault case, or for the lover who will not be heard by the girl with whom he is infatuated, or for the patient who is kept at home by illness, or to the other similar people who are affected by like miseries. I have not been any of these. All of this is strange cloth from which, at most, the coat has been made that I wore for a while and that I then discarded in exchange for another. But then who am I? The man who has written the world as will and representation and has provided a solution to the great problem of existence that perhaps will render obsolete all previous solutions, but which is in any case will engage thinkers in the centuries to come. I am that man, and what could disturb him in the few years in which he still has to draw breath? He thinks very highly of himself. Okay, so there are two references to women in Berlin. He's trying to see this. Both the women were named Carolyn. Okay,
Okay.
so he was trying to date this, and he did date this Carolyn Madon. She was 20 and 21. The second Carolyn was Schopenhauer's neighbor, the 47-year-old seamstress. So he's not obviously didn't have a relationship with her. But there's this woman named Richter who's 17. Okay, the 17-year-old Richter, and he's how old is he? He's like in his 30s or 40s.
Hmm.
Age gap. I actually have it here. Let me find it. Where do I have it? I have it here somewhere. Yeah, he's 43. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
17, you say.
Yeah, a little bit much. Yeah, not. Yeah,
Yeah.
wouldn't fly now. No, we would not.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. But again, it's not that different from his father and his mother. Um, where she appeared as a dancer and chorus girl at the Berlin Opera in May of 1820, she gave birth to her first son, Johann Wilhelm Adolf, the likely offspring of the Privy Secretary Louis Medon. Later, she would use his name and claim to be his widow. It is not known exactly when Schopenhauer met her, but it is probably sometime in 1821. Ida, or Little Princess as he affectionately called her, was a lively, dark-haired young woman. Later, Schopenhauer would theorize that light-haired, blue-eyed people were attracted almost instantly to brunettes, but seldom the latter to the former, and that men were naturally drawn to women between the ages of 18 and 28, and women to men between the ages of 30 and 35, ages that represented to him the acme of the procreative power of the sexes. The dark-haired, brown-eyed Madon was 19, and the light-haired, blue-eyed Schopenhauer was 33 when they met. So he's talking about Madon now. But Richter just outright denied his advances, and then he tried to court a woman named Weiss. And let me get that. I want to get that, and then I have the tetragamy bit. He wants a wife. I mean, that's what he needs. So the Richter was older. She was 19, but he may have met her. What says 17-year-old Richter 18, 19. She's young. In any case,
Yeah.
and then we've got Flora Weiss, and you're going to enjoy this, Abby. She wants nothing to do with it. Nothing. Zero. Yeah,
Not
right.
having it.
Carolyn Madon was probably not part of his game plan to possess a wife. That's what he wanted. He wanted to possess a wife.
Okay.
Um, and if his desire was to possess a new love interest, Flora Weiss, then it was an ill-conceived plan because it was carried out in a manner that made Schopenhauer appear as a pathetic, perhaps even lecherous older man. Weiss was
Hmm.
just 17 when she caught the philosopher's eye, but as much as he was attracted to her, she was repelled by the 39-year-old Privat Dozent. During a boating party on one of Berlin's lakes, according to one of the Weiss family stories, Schopenhauer brought along some grapes that he shared with Flora and one of her girlfriends. Weiss quietly slipped the grapes over the side of the boat because the old Schopenhauer had handled them. It was also part of the family lore that when Schopenhauer asked Johann Weiss for leave to court his daughter, he was taken aback, exclaiming that she was still a child, to which the philosopher replied that that was what pleased him. Oof. But after he mentioned
Oh.
that, he had sufficient income to care well for Flora's future. The Berlin art dealer left the decision to the young girl, believing that the relationship would go nowhere, which it did. She felt such a lively aversion toward Schopenhauer, which would only be proven and intensified by his small gifts, that the failure of the courtship could not be doubted. Curiously, Schopenhauer's father was 20 years older than his mother, but not 22. All right.
Hmm.
Okay. So he's got to just trying to do what his dad did, but he doesn't have. I mean,
Yeah.
he's a fucking
He's
mess,
got
man.
poodles, not spaniels.
It really, yeah, yeah. And it's like he sidles up to her. You want some grapes? Do you want to hear about Do you want to hear about how life is suffering? Do you want to hear about my? Do you want to hear my essay? I've sketched an essay called "On the Suffering of the World." Do you want to hear this? Yes, you do. Let
It's
me
just
read
like,
you a little bit of.
why are you so stooped? Why is your handwriting so feminine?
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. If suffering is not the first and immediate object of our life, then our existence is the most inexpedient and inappropriate thing in the world. For it is absurd. Girls just want to have fun. Oh, girls just want to have. It's all they really want. Okay. Yeah. No. Didn't work
Like
out.
I made the mistake of asking to pet his poodle that he was walking, and now like I have got an existential crisis coming on.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that doesn't, nothing comes of that. And
Oh,
Yeah, I've got a little bit about his time in Italy. He goes to Italy while this Berlin case is kind of going on, and he doesn't really realize how serious it is. He's like, "Oh, it can't be that." He doesn't realize. Um, okay, is this right? Um, in Munich. Oh no, here. Let me read. With Italy, one lives as with a beloved, he wrote. Today in violent quarrel, tomorrow in adoration. With Germany, as with a housewife, without great anger and without great love. So again, tomatoes and potatoes.
potatoes.
Yeah, yeah. And so he's traveling around and he began suffering a myriad of illnesses, hemorrhoids with fistulas, gout, and nervous
Oh,
disorders. Um, it was as
yikes.
if his German housewife had made him pay for his enjoyment of his Italian beloved. His hands trembled. This biography, I love this biography. His hands trembled so greatly that he found it almost impossible to write. He was looking for miraculous cures. In Munich from October through December, Schopenhauer was intensively treated for the ailments. The nature of his treatment suggests that the philosopher had contracted syphilis, a predictable result for a frequenter of whorehouses. Protection from venereal disease became a key concern for Schopenhauer, who would pride himself with gaining the knowledge of how to avoid infection while remaining sexually active. So there you go. He describes a prophylactic measure. One dissolves a portion of chloride on lime in water, and then after coitus bathes one's penis in it, which in any case will completely destroy any contracted poison.
Huh.
Lime and water. So you turn
This is not
you
medical
turn your
advice,
you
listeners.
turn your dick into a vodka tonic. Uh, you are the garnish, and clearly the French ladies can't get to you there. Uh, I'm gonna say maybe wrap it up. Maybe don't frequent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Frequent is the
Yeah.
word that really gets me.
Frequent. Yeah.
Yeah, to frequent. It's a verb. Frequent as a verb is suggests weekly is what
hmm
that's what I think it would suggest. You got a budget for it, right? Okay. Um, all right. So there's so much more to cover. But I'm just going to blast this through to the end, and we'll come back on the After Dark and talk about some fun stuff. Um, Johanna dies in Jena
Oh,
on the 17th of April, and he does not attend the funeral. And they had only
that's really
corresponded.
sad.
They hadn't seen each other since that break, and
Mm,
they corresponded. They wrote letters, but that was it. And there was no affection in the letters. It was purely practical.
mm.
One telling thing that I think puts him in a better light, if we're coming to 50-50 between the two of them, is that his relationship with Adele improved after the mother
Right.
was gone. I think they could relate then directly without her, like, you know,
Sure.
yeah,
So
very, very heavy.
Adele also never married.
I'm not sure if Adele married. Let me look. She has her own
I
interesting
can look.
Wikipedia because she became an author herself. And she would
I can
do
look.
these. No, I'm looking at it right now. She would do
Oh,
these like paper pieces of paper cut art. Um, and yeah, I don't see anything about children or marriage here. I didn't dig too much into her, her back, but there you go.
yeah.
Um, yeah. For a lot of his life, he was known as, Johanna Schopenhauer's son. Yeah, that must have like really pissed him off. Yeah, no, and she never married. It's I'm reading here she never married and never had children.
Mm.
Um, so okay, all right, yeah, and she wrote some herself, and there you go. But let's see. He's started to write these essays that are eventually going to become P&P, Parerga,
hmm
and Paralipomena, whatever. He wins some prizes on the freedom of the will. He wins the Royal Norwegian Society Prize on the basis of morality. Uh, he loses the Royal Danish Society, so he loves the Ouija's, but he hates the Danes. Um, and his next essay is on why the Norwegians are a superior people to the Danish sexually and aesthetically.
uh,
That's very funny. Um,
just chill out.
but he publishes them in The Two Fundamental Problems of Ethics in 1841. This is where he claims that compassion is morality's basis.
Okay.
42, the seamstress finally dies. Johanna has kept pumping out her books, but she's gone now. Um, and so the second volume of The World as Will and Representation comes out, and it has a lot of supplements.
Mm.
Okay. And one of the supplements is this one, which is, let me find it. No, I don't want to read that. Um, so let's see. So in 1844, volume two. So this is where he writes the metaphysics of sexual love, of love. So I want to read this. This is where he publishes this. So he's got this big famous book. It's like increased enough to get a second volume, second edition,
hmm
right? His stature is sort of on on the rise, and he's not famous yet, but maybe people know his philosophy. And he takes this opportunity to publish more essays. So he's just focusing on essays now, right? First of all, let them take into consideration that the creature whom they are idealizing today in madrigals and sonnets would have been ignored almost entirely by them if she had been born 18 years previously. Okay, so the 23-year-old woman the poet is writing the poem to, at 41, he's not writing the poem. That's what he's saying. It's very harsh, very harsh. Nobody likes to hear it, but that's what he's saying. Every kind of love, however ethereal it may seem to be, springs entirely from the instinct of sex. Indeed, it is absolutely this instinct, only in a more definite, specialized, and perhaps, strictly speaking, more individualized form. If bearing this in mind, one considers the important role which love plays in all its phases and degrees, not only in dramas and novels, but also in the real world, where next to one's love life, it shows itself as the strongest and most active of all motives. If one considers that it constantly occupies half the capacities and thoughts of the younger part of humanity, and is the final goal of almost every human effort, that it influences adversely the most important affairs, that we read some of this. Let me get through and read more. Yeah. Appears as a hostile demon whose object is to overthrow, confuse, and upset everything it comes across. If all this is taken into consideration, one will have reason to ask, why is there all this noise? Why all this crowding, blustering, anguish, and want? Why should such a trifle play so important a part and create disturbance and confusion in the well regulated life of mankind? But to the earnest investigator, the spirit of truth gradually unfolds the answer. It is not a trifle one is dealing with. The importance of love is absolutely in keeping with the seriousness and zeal with which it is prosecuted. The ultimate aim of all love affairs, whether they may be tragic or comic in nature, is really more important than all other aims of human life, and therefore perfectly deserving of that profound seriousness with which it is pursued. We need to talk about sex, people. He's writing in the middle of the 19th century. For that alone, he's got a mark in history for sure.
Hmm.
Because I highly doubt this was being taken on quite so directly by very many people.
No.
And no, so, and this goes directly to Freud. Okay, and he also includes on the inner nature of art, which I read some from. I read from some.
Hmm.
Okay, all right, cool. All right, and we're gonna make him famous, and then he's gonna die. But not after a lot of long walks. And I got to make sure that I get the hedgehog business in. Did I miss the hedgehog's dilemma? Oh no, here it is.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I did not miss it. It is right here. We're almost done with the core episode, friends. Woo, went so fast. So there's unrest in Frankfurt. He sides with order, welcoming troops from a window. He bequeaths money to a Prussian soldier's invalids fund in his will. This says a very Schopenhauerian moment of bourgeois fear of chaos. Now, he publishes Miscellanean Aphorisms, which is Parerga and Paralipomena, and it sells. He
Hey,
becomes famous. Okay, and in it
finally
appears
beat my mother.
that's right. She's in the ground, and I'm famous, and I manage my money better, and my sister will talk with me. It's good. We're living large, right? um, so this is the hedgehog's dilemma is one of my favorite things. Freud adopted it. This is the reason that Freud has a hedgehog or a porcupine on his desk at the Freud Museum over there in London. If you go see the Freud Museum, have you been over there, Abby? Go there sometime. It's
No.
very interesting. You'll see there's a bronze porcupine statue on the desk, and it's a metaphor for human intimacy. Here's how it goes. One cold winter's day, a number of porcupines huddled together quite closely in order to that through their mutual warmth to prevent themselves from being frozen. But they soon felt the effect of their quills on one another, which made them again move apart. Now, when the need for warmth once more brought them back together, the drawback of the quills was repeated so that they were tossed between two evils until they had discovered the proper distance from which they could best tolerate one another. Thus, the need for society, which springs from the emptiness and monotony of men's lives, drives them together, but their many unpleasant and repulsive qualities and insufferable drawbacks once more drive them apart. Tell me about it. The mean distance which they finally discover and which enables them to endure being together is politeness and good manners. Whoever does not keep to this is told in England to keep his distance. By virtue thereof, it is true that the need for mutual warmth will only be imperfectly satisfied. But on the other hand, the prick of the quills will not be felt. Yet, whoever has a great deal of internal warmth of his own will prefer to keep away from society in order to avoid giving or receiving trouble or annoyance. Okay? We may be doing Freud in January. I may talk more about the porcupine's dilemma or the hedgehog's dilemma. But isn't that a beautiful description of human intimacy? Don't we feel that in our relationships? It's like there's a certain amount of like, don't get too close all the time. We could have a cuddle, but then, I don't want to get poked in the eye by your quills, right? And as you become more intimate, maybe you find that median, and then with some other people, you have this median. You're trying to share
Hmm.
warmth, but it's this constant tense negotiation. that we live with, and that's called society. And when we don't have a society, everybody starts bashing into each other and hitting into each other and murdering each other and arguing and not and or walking away and freezing to death. Right? So society is just that negotiation between the hedgehogs. Love that. I choose to be Sonic. Um, going after those rings, baby. All right, cool. On women, we're gonna read the whole essay. Couple fun things he says in this. Women are big children all their lives. That's one thing he says. He also says women are by nature meant to obey. Cool. That's going to be great on the After Dark. Artofdarkpod.com slash, well, just go to artofdarkpod.com. The links are there. Patreon.com slash artofdarkpod. Substack.com slash at artofdarkpod. If you want to listen to this and all the core episodes that we have going back a ways, ad free, you're going to want to subscribe, please. Got a lot of great stuff on there, and you're going to want to hang out with us in the After Dark. Plus, book club next year. Going to be some more living authors. It's going to be a really good time. All right. We're almost done. Yeah, pretty much it. So let's see here. I have to read about his walking. So he's okay. So now he's a public figure. Like portraits are sold of him. There are crowds come
Why?
come to see him in Frankfurt. Well, there's a lot of good stuff in that in these essays. There really is, and you have to understand like how
Yeah, but the
revolutionary these.
portraits.
Oh, right. Well, but that's how it used to be. I mean, they'll
Okay.
do the bust. There'd be people would have a bust of Goethe in their home.
Right.
These are
Instead of
our
like a
great.
poster.
Sure. I mean, got to remember
Yeah.
these are Germans. And they're very proud of their German philosophers, right? Let me find his walk because I got his walking habit. He kept the same habit every day for 27 years. And here's the habit. Let's see. Da, 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 da. Yeah, and that book is Essays and Aphorisms, right? Okay. From the age of 45 until his death 27 years later, Schopenhauer lived in Frankfurt. He lived alone, and every day he followed an identical routine. This is why I keep going back to the Tylenol. He strikes me as a certain type. Here's a breakdown. He rose every morning at 7 and had a bath, but no breakfast. He drank a cup of strong coffee before sitting down at his desk and writing until noon. Hemingway would do similarly. Hemingway would write until noon. At noon, he ceased work for the day and spent half an hour practicing the flute, on which he became quite a skillful performer. Then he went out to lunch at the Englischer Hof, the English house. After lunch, he returned home and read until 4 when he left for his daily walk. He walked for 2 hours, no matter what the weather. At 6 o'clock, he visited the reading room of the library and read the Times. In the evening, he attended the theater or a concert, after which he had dinner at a hotel or restaurant. He got back home between 9 and 10 and went early to bed. And that's how he lived. The Frankfurters would set their clocks to Schopenhauer's walks. That was how he was like a train.
Hmm.
So there's his routine. Um, and he in 1833 he settles in Frankfurt to adopt that routine, and he only has poodles for company, and presumably the women the women he would hire, presumably.
The
Um,
ones he had to pay to obey him.
indeed, yeah, to possess. Um, I apparently he became quite manic about fame too. Like he really took it seriously. Um, he died on the 21st of September, 1860, at 72, um, after some lung trouble. And he had a Lutheran funeral. And I'm going to give him the last word before we come back. I have some stuff here on his posthumous influence. I might talk about that. He influenced Wagner in a major way, Nietzsche in a major way, although Nietzsche would turn on him at the end. And then maybe most significantly, Freud, because Freud's thinking still permeates culture. And then on the After Dark, we're going to do our Year of Lynch. I'm going to read some of that. I've got the full letter of that awful fun letter from Johanna, who Abby really loves. We're going to read On Women, and then we're going to give a little bit of time to his spiritualism and magnetism, and all the rest of it. So good times. Let me find the page number that I want here. I just opened up the letter to be ready. So here I'm reading from. What am I reading from? You have a good time, Abby? Are you Schopenhauer
Yeah.
pilled? Why don't you give me the
No.
verdict? What do you think? What do you think? Is it 50-50? Is it 50-50,
Um,
or is he more to blame than the mother?
After the small excerpt of On Women, I'm gonna say 60-40.
60-40, you feel like Arthur's to blame, but she brought him into the world. She willed him into being. So
Yeah,
she owns
but
that too, doesn't she?
he's gone and picked up some ideas from somewhere
Okay. All right. Well, along with the syphilis. All right,
along
and
with
this
the
is this is
syphilis.
an essay called Mystics, Saints, Ascetics. It follows, and I'm not reading the whole thing, but it follows from all that has been said that the denial of the will to live, which is the same as what is called complete resignation or holiness, always proceeds from that quieter of the will. And this is the knowledge of its inner conflict and its essential vanity, expressing themselves in the suffering of all that lives. The difference, which we have described as two paths, is whether that knowledge is called forth by suffering, which is merely and simply known and freely appropriated by our seeing through the principium individuationis, or by suffering immediately felt by ourselves. True salvation, deliverance from life and suffering, cannot even be imagined without complete denial of the will. Till then, everyone is nothing but this will itself, whose phenomenon is an evanescent existence, an always vain and constantly frustrated striving, and the world full of suffering as we have described it. All belong to this irrevocably and in like manner. For we found previously that life is always certain to the will to live, and its sole actual form is the present from which they never escape, since birth and death rule in the phenomenon. The Indian myth expresses this by saying that they are born again. The great ethical difference of characters means that the bad man is infinitely remote from attaining that knowledge, whose result is the denial of the will, and is therefore, in truth, actually abandoned to all the miseries which appear in life as possible. For even the present fortunate state of his person is only a phenomenon brought about by the principium individuationis, uh, uh, and the illusion of Maya, the happy dream of a beggar. The sufferings that in the vehemence and passion of his pressing will he inflicts on others are the measure of the sufferings, and the experience of which in his own person cannot break his will and lead to final denial. On the other hand, all true and pure affection, and even all free justice, result from seeing through this principium. When this penetration occurs in all its force, it produces perfect sanctification and salvation, the phenomenon of which are the state of resignation previously described, resigning yourself, handing your will over, the unshakable peace accompanying this, and the highest joy and delight in death. And that is the life and work of Arthur Schopenhauer, old Chopey. Whew. What do you think he's doing now, Abby? How do you think he would adapt to seeing women with credit cards? And I mean, I guess his wife and his
I
mother
mean,
had
he's
money.
he's he's one of those people at a university, talking about how women would be much happier if they were at home in the kitchen having children.
Artofdarkpod.com. Abby's coming in hot with this episode about Merita Mita.
Yes.
And we've got a banging season 6 coming for you. Hang tight for the announcements. It's going to be really fun. We're going to keep hanging out. We're going to keep covering the life and work of these great artists and philosophers and thinkers and creative people and musicians. And next season is going to be very literary, but we've got some musicians in there too. We're going to cover some mystics, some philosophers. You're going to see some old familiar faces. Abby will be back in the summer. We're not going to say what she's going to cover, but it's going to be great. We were already kind of teasing this stuff on the Discord. Come hang out with us. Tell people about the show if you can't support us materially. Tell people about the show if you are a patron. We appreciate it. Everything's at artofdarkpod.com. I'm Kevin Kautzman. This is a great Abby Lucas. Abby, good luck preparing your episode. Thank you for hanging out with me. We'll do
Thank
another
you.
hour on the After Dark. Support the pod. We'll see you over there, and try not to contract any venereal diseases on the way. I've got some lime juice back here, and I'll be back in 18 minutes.
Bye.
It's gonna sting.